You know?
Okay, well, let's get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. It is 1:08, and we are in City Commission, and we're starting our City Commission workshop. Sitting here at the table, we have Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Stokes, Commissioner Emmerich, Vice Mayor White, and myself, Mayor Langdon. We also have with us City Manager, and we have City Clerk, and we have Doug Thomas with us, and up in the back, we have Deputy Chief Morales. So, do we have...
Sorry, DC.
Who's playing the role? Do we have any public comment for this item online?
We do not.
And there's none in-house, so we will slide right into, it's not on here.
It's a meeting.
We can volunteer to do it. How's that?
Doug, do you want to lead us?
Sure.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You are welcome, and at this point, I am going to hand the baton over to Doug, who will lead us through the rest of the
Great.
agenda.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that as well. I guess we'll have the virtual baton. I gave you all virtual magic wands when I spoke to you last week, so we'll go back and forth. Well, it's certainly, and if I can get the slideshow back up, if someone can get it so I can see what I'm doing. Is it up?
It'll just be a few moments.
Should be on. It was. There we go. Okay, super. We're back. Okay, so all right, we are here. Welcome. Well, it is always, well, it was short-lived. There we go. It's always great to be back in Northport. As you all know, I've got a kind of a vested interest in working with this community and a number of your staff. I've done a number of recruitments for both Amber as well as you with Jerome, and done a variety of training throughout the year. So it's kind of fun to watch you as you going through all the growth spurts and the issues that you've been facing, especially post-hurricane. And I know when I spoke to all of you last week, I was asking about what the implications were in terms, I know having been a city manager in Lakeland when we went through the '04 hurricanes with 3 hurricanes in 6 weeks, I know what it takes to kind of recover. You got buried with a really slow-moving storm, and I was really surprised to see the number of roofs that are still on blue tarps. And I know it don't give you any sense, but it took us about a year to get almost everybody through that process. So it takes a little while. So appreciate the patience I'm sure that you're working with your residents and your building inspections and all the other work that's taking place. But that being said, it's good to be back here. Pleased to be able to continue the dialogue that we had last year as it related to kind of a revamping of your strategic planning process. And so as Jerome and the team have worked with me, it seems awfully loud. I don't know if they can do that. Yeah, that seems like, yeah, my voice carries pretty heavily, so you may want to tone that down a little bit. What we had talked about as we approached this was to start off this afternoon with a little bit of a team building exercise process, just to get everybody kind of on the same page and try to work together as a group. As you know, that's a pretty important function. I always say as elected officials, it's one of the rarities where you come and go as elected officials and you're just expected the next person in. It's like next man up or next person up, as Phil can attest. I know we talked about that as well, stepping in when Jill had termed out in the process. And you're just expected that you're going to continue to work as a group. But as you all know, one person can change the dynamics and the personalities of a council, and you've got to kind of find your way and your footing in the process. So I'm going to walk you through and exercise a little bit about something that we had done with SGR that we thought was pretty helpful to help us work on team building skills and understanding each other and how it can work better and more effectively as well. So we're going to do a little bit of that this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me. And then I'm going to walk through some background issues that I think will hopefully get you in the right frame of mind with regards to kind of the operating environment that you're now trying to navigate as elected officials in today's environment. Part of that will be high-level kind of strategic visioning exercises to think through, but also I want to highlight, because a number of you had talked about political and polarization and what that looks and feels like. And so we'll talk a little bit about why that is affecting you and how you might be able to address those issues as you're going forward and planning for your future as well. So I thought for today, since we've got basically the afternoon, that would also allow us to then go through the discussion and the review of your current vision statement, your mission statement, and your organizational values. If we can kind of get those all out of the way today, then that gives us for tomorrow to really work through the balance of the strategic planning process, which is to go through your pillars, get an update from staff with regards to the work that has been done in the past year as it relates to the key indicators. And then that's really where most of you'll roll up your sleeves and get your arms around things about, are these the right pillars? Are these the right strategic goals? And being able to get everybody on the same page. And hopefully, last year, I know this will be the first time for Phil to go through this, but last year, as you may remember, we kind of blew up the previous plan and redid it and got it to here. So we've got a foundation, but I do encourage anytime there's a change on your board that everybody gets a chance to rethink that process. And so I know, it takes a little while to kind of get your feet settled as a newly elected official, but this is a chance to put your stamp and to agree or disagree. And as a group, things may have changed. Certainly, we've gone through things last year with inflation and the cost of capital, and certainly the impacts of Hurricane Ian, that we may very well have some changes and things with regards to how you might want to look differently going forward as well. So that's kind of what we're going to try to do today and tomorrow. And the goal here is to try to wrap up this afternoon close to 5 o'clock. And if we get there a little early, great. If we get there a little later, we'll just kind of push it off into the next morning from there. So, okay. So, as you all know, what we try to do when I go through these processes for retreats, and I never know where to stand, so I'll kind of move around so that I'm not behind anybody and look to all the commissioners here at the same time. What I try to do is to chat with all of you to get some thoughts and impressions about how you're working as a team, what are the challenges, what things have been going on, some of the goals and objectives that you're trying to accomplish, and things that just to kind of retouch where you all are individually. And as you know, you don't get a chance to talk to each other about that unless you're in a session like today. And so today will be an opportunity to kind of share some thoughts. So what we'll do is to provide you just kind of things that I've heard. I've tried to paraphrase them. What I've all told you is I'm not going to say who said what, where, and how. If you want to own a statement or you want to elaborate on something that sounds like that's kind of like what I think I said, that's certainly available for there, because the goal here is to have you share your ideas, your thoughts, and to help, and that's certainly part of the team building process as well. So throughout this today and tomorrow, I will have some feedback from the results of those conversations, those advanced interviews, and as I said, this will be the first time you all see this going forward. So the first thing I always ask is, despite the fact I'm working with the administration about what you want to do, I always like to ask the recipients, the 5 of you, what do you want to make sure gets accomplished as we spend this next day and a half? So the concept, some of the feeling, embracing the diversity of what brings to the roles, strength that makes you better as a team. You want to share your perceptions, see what is viewed as complementary versus differences, and take advantage. And I think what you're going to find is everyone's style is a little bit different. That's to be expected. We're all humans. But I think what you're going to find is that you share a lot of commonalities. And when I try to do these retreats, I try to focus on that. So I was appreciative that someone raised that point, because that's what I try to do, is get a handle of where are you collectively on the same page, and then how far can you push that outward till all of a sudden it still works for everyone with compromises and issues before it becomes a challenge. But a number of you also spoke about the polarization concerns of what's taking place. And you, like in my community in Lakeland, we're one of the boom towns in the state of Florida. I think it's 2 and 3 or 2 and 5 or something of that nature. So you're experiencing tremendous growth. With that brings a whole bit of challenges, because the personality and the dynamics and the culture of the community has a potential change. So I wanted to, because a couple of you talked about that, wanted to kind of give you some tools about what's happening and how you might be able to best address that going further. But there's this sense that you're either on my side or the other side, there's nothing in the middle. And government, especially local government level, has really been designed to find that compromise, to find that middle ground. And that shouldn't be viewed as a negative, it should be viewed as a positive. And so, as I said, we'll talk a little bit about how we might be able to help in that process going forward. The other thing I want to get a handle on, how you worked as a team. So I said, basically, what's your sense of your working relationship as a governing body? Because you're newly reconstituted after the last election. I'm not going to read through each one of those, but there's a sense there as you can get a feel that there's a perception amongst all of you that you work pretty well as a team. You respect your differences of opinion. You respect the fact that you have different strengths that you bring to the table. A number of you told me that you really rely on each other for certain instincts and backgrounds that you may not possess yourself, and that makes you stronger as a team. But there's a sense that it really does generally work pretty well as a group. I will compliment you on that because I can tell you the number of communities that I work in, that's not always the case. I have been in sessions where councils, and actually done retreats, where councils have been literally having lawsuits against each other in their midst of depositions. There were times where I thought I wasn't sure I was going to keep that group together when I was doing that session. There were some really tense moments, but at the same token, I just want you to tell you that as the societies become more polarized, oftentimes that has manifested itself on the dais with councils and people that come into elected officials wanting to do something which may or may not even be on the agenda of a local government function. But so I compliment you in that regard. Everybody has rough patches, everybody has different thoughts and personalities and issues to overcome, but you all said, hey, we work pretty well as a group. And so I compliment you in that regard. You can see that in your comments that came forward. So the other, basically, the different points, the views, the experiences and things of that nature, but there's a really strong perception that you are a highly functioning group. So that's great news. That makes this type of session that much more enjoyable to actually work through because now you know each other and you understand where you're coming from there. So the other question I ask is then, how are you doing with the administration? This is a council manager form of government, so you have a chance to work not only as elected officials providing policy direction and feedback to the administration handling the day-to-day functions of working back and forth with you to help advance your concepts and your priorities. So for the most part, we also know, I know there's been some tensions in that, but we're going to work through that there as well. But there's a sense that really, generally speaking, that you're able to work your way through those matters as well. Overall, pretty good shape. As I said, overall, the respect for the management, respect for the team, respect for the process that's coming forward, and the relationship that you have and ongoing. So hopefully those sound familiar to you in terms of reflecting your thoughts and opinions as we went forward. So with that in mind, I have an exercise that we're going to break up to do. So I'm going to ask first and foremost, everybody heard of the Marshmallow Challenge before? Oh, great, I got rookies. That's what I like on this one, because you can game the system if you know the process here. So let me work you through the rules and what we're going to do as part of the Marshmallow Challenge. So Peter Skillman is the one that came up with this concept, and we're going to talk a little bit about after we go through this exercise. So let me walk you through. The objective here is you're going to be breaking off in teams of 4. So we're going to split up the commission and the charter officers here. We're each going to give you some of you are going to work on this table. We've got another table in the back. I'm going to give you 20 sticks of spaghetti, 1 yard of tape, 1 yard of string, and 1 marshmallow. So those are, and I'm also going to give you a pair of scissors to cut the string. So that's not included in that if you want to do that in the process. So what are you trying to do? I'm going to give you 18 minutes. So this is going to be a time test. If any of you are already stressing out about timing and pressures, that's part of this exercise as well. So the rules of the game will be each team can only use the materials I give you, okay? So you can't be pulling stuff out of your pockets and other areas along that line. And I'm going to give you all the materials I just outlined for each group to go forward. What you're not going to be using anything else beyond those items. At the end of this 18 minutes, the goal here is who can build the tallest structure which has the marshmallow at the top and is freestanding. Okay? You're going to basically be playing construction work here, as construction and design work in the area. And at the end, if it's successful, it stands there by itself, unassisted. You're not supporting it in any way, shape, or form. Okay? So that's what the objective process will be. The winner will be determined by a vertical from the table going up. I've got my tape measure with me to see which team wins on this process as well. If you want, depending on your desires and your team's approach, you can use the tape to stick whatever you want to the table. Okay, so the table can serve as your foundation. If you need to support it with a tape, that's also fair game as well. And then lastly, what I'll do The spaghetti, if you decide that you want to leave them in the regular box length that I'm going to give you, that's fine. You can break them into smaller pieces if you want, but I'm going to give you the warning. If you decide to do that, you don't get to replace it and say, oh, I need another full-length piece of spaghetti. So this is almost like Apollo 13 when they empty the box and say, this is what the guys have to deal with up in the capsule. You got to solve it. Whatever you got on the table's there, but if you break it, you got to work around that and use that as part of your design as well. And then what I'll do is, I said, this is a timed process. So you got 18 minutes. So when we get to the last few minutes, at 3 minutes to go, I'll give you you got 3 minutes, I'll give you a 2 minute and then a 1 minute. And by the time I say that's it, the goal is you built a structure with a marshmallow that is on top of your structure and it's unassisted. It stands by itself and it stands there as a piece of art and a piece of design. So, any questions?
Use all the materials?
No, you can use it, as I said, you can decide what you want to do and how you want to build it. The goal here is to be the tallest of the two teams in terms of the structure.
I don't really understand the second to the last bullet.
Second to the last bullet. Oh, so I'm not going to give you any hints about how each of your team will design whatever they're going to do to build this structure. Remember, you got spaghetti, so it's pretty thin. So sometimes people will tape the footings, if you will, to the table to kind of hold it in place. That's what I meant. So the table is fair game for you to use as support, and you can use tape or whatever device you want to do it. But you can't, at the end, you have to stand away, and it's got to stand by itself.
Is that the one you were referring to?
That what you mean?
This tape or the
The-
breaking it up into pieces?
Well, you break it up into pieces. Once broken, they cannot be replaced with new full length. So again, if you're making
here's the deal.
base,
You're going to get 20 of these. If you break it, you still got 20 of these, but I can't give you another one to fix the one you just broke. Okay, so once it,
an additional. You
yeah,
can't
you
replace.
get what you got. If you
Got it.
break it, you got to work around it. I can't
Or
replace the
saying,
one that's
I
busted.
messed up.
Now
Can
I
I have
get it.
another
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What
The
you
only
would say,
the
I
only thing
messed
I'm
up.
breaking the rules on this is I'm giving you a pair of scissors so you can cut the twine if you want to do that. But other than that, that's the rule. All right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. I'd like to break up constitutional officers and elected officials. Let's take the 4 of you in this group. We'll take the 4 of you. There's a table in the back. I will get everybody their material so you can get yourself set up.
Right?
Who's our for, right here? Okay,
Oh, us 4?
good. I didn't want to get stuck with Barb after that question.
Yeah, he said, win. If I caught me, we were gonna lose. But yeah. Oh, that's right.
Jesus. You know what Victor's up to now, don't you?
He wanted to be sure there was, he wanted to be sure there was an officer with each group.
See how quickly she turned on me? Like, what? Just like that.
Why are you doing this?
To say, I haven't heard it yet.
Are you thinking? Are you getting some thoughts in your head?
I have no thoughts. This
So,
is
a
not
plan?
my forte. I am not an architect. I didn't have sons, so I never picked up those skills along the way.
Alice knows how to stake trees, so you got an up on that one.
Okay, so there's the yard of string. There's the 20 pieces there.
So much more than it appears.
The prize marshmallow. Let me get you a yard of tape.
Don't eat the marshmallow.
Yeah, don't eat the marshmallow. If you eat the marshmallow, you're going to fail in the program. So. It's about a yard there.
Don't be looking at our architect over here.
I already got this figured out.
I think I
Okay,
did too.
and here's the yard of tape.
We're gonna have to talk.
All right, now the 4 of you. Let's go to the back room. The back table
I
here.
agree on this, perhaps we should be.
I have no thoughts. Oh, sure, none.
And don't start yet. Let me get both teams a chance to get their material, and then we can officially get things in motion here.
survivors hundreds of times.
Yeah, this is a MacGyver, exactly. This is kind of like a MacGyver approach.
I said survivors. They have
MacGyver.
challenges like this all the time. All right, let's think about it.
All right, there's your tape. Leave it over. Right there. All right, okay. No, you get 1 yard. Did I? Well, whoever wins, I will give a marshmallow they can eat. All right, are we ready? Let me get a timer going here, and then we'll officially get this thing started. Okay, and start.
Have like the 3 or 4, and up top where they intersect, that's where you tape it together. And then you could actually do that again if we're just going higher and higher.
Scissors if you need them for the. Scissors for the string if you need it.
Gotta be careful with the weight of the marshmallow on one Yeti, because it could go snap. Right, you can put it on the crown of the top, yes. Right, but that's what we're gonna use with the string on the bottom, where as it fans out, it's not gonna go past the string, because you can tape the string down if you wanted.
See. Yeah, doing okay? You're doing fine.
As it's coming up at the top, it can nestle in the top.
Yeah,
like
whatever,
that.
whatever you got to do however you want.
Or we can make it shorter and it just sits. As your top comes down, you got your 3, if it's that right there, because it has to be on the top. So it's almost like a diamond, diamond ring.
Whatever distance it is.
Yeah, that's what she was saying. But we don't know how big it's going to be.
And the other thing is,
Where they cross, you gotta remember the Indians back in the day, they used flashing. They didn't use tape back then. They used like deer hide or whatever made into strings to tie it together. Or we could just sit here and talk about it for 18 minutes and just put them all together and just hold it up like 5 foot.
when he's saying that. That's what I was hired.
That's what I was so.
What happened?
They were looking at me. No, it's a tape, it's exercise, so they're not getting ideas from them, they're trying to figure out what we know.
There was some discussion about it, who was gaming with the videos were taking place, if anybody could see the other team. So we've made sure that that error has been removed. So you're on your own.
Well, the thing about it is, he says that we could tape the stuff to the table. Yeah. I think the string's gonna be a weak link with the construction of the spaghetti. I think the tape is stronger and more secure holding the spaghetti together. Yes. Shit, they've already got their first spaghetti already going.
I'll be honest with you. How that works.
On their second story over there.
Yes, you are 6 minutes and 32 seconds into the process, so a little over half, or a little over a third.
Don't forget.
When you wish you had small fingers, right?
It looks really good. Looks.
Yeah, but I just thought of
You
something.
got a vision, huh?
I just thought of something totally different.
Yeah,
though.
this.
Right, but if you started like this,
Didn't teach you this
and
stuff in
you're
high
square,
school.
and then you go up, and you're square, everything's still the same with the base. And you go up, because I think once you get past, that would be 3 levels. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could actually have 5 stories. You tape them all together, because, well, not 5, because you would have like your base,
Marshmallow has to be at the top.
then
Yeah,
4 of
not the
them
tallest
going up.
structure. Yeah, no, yeah. Trying to game the rules here, I can tell. Got to keep her in check. She may be the mayor, but she's still got to play by the rules, right?
You can tape it with little drabs of tape halfway to your spaghetti, and you can actually snap them in half to make it smaller, and then you can go taller. Instead of it being a full size, you're making it half size. That would give you more material. And then it'd be, the smaller it is, the sturdier it would be. You would stick that in the corner. Okay. I'm just saying, you see, you got your square.
You want a square of spaghetti on the
But
table?
where your hand is, just drop your spaghetti down in that corner. Yeah. Put it in the corner.
Give everybody a heads up, we're about 9 minutes, so you're halfway into the process.
That would be wrapped with tape. That whole corner. That would give you your first leg up. just saying, it was
I'm
just,
trying to figure out how you would.
to make it sturdy is, I would cut the spaghetti up just with a piece of tape. Yeah, they did the plan that I was talking about earlier, they got
So
the
do you
TP,
want-
now they got the other TP
Do you
upside
want
down.
this way, or do you want it?
Um,
How big of?
Now, something like this could hold this would hold like two pieces down in your square. Here, let's do. Let me see. Phil's still messing with this. I don't want to break them, but. Another one. No, another spaghetti.
Oh.
I only got 3 more. Or we could go triangle instead of a square. Up with your TP there, slick. All right.
There you go. All right, so then. And you can take another one and put it.
Do another one there. Then let's use the triangle as the base, and we'll tape it down into the triangle. I don't.
I'm keeping both teams honest. That's
How's your fashion? So do you want to go one more story tall? No, he's got your base, he's got the base all set, yeah. So, yeah. We could probably go up one more. Okay, don't down too much. We want to put another.
Nope.
We could do probably one more because it's strong. It's strong.
Yes. Yes, yes, it's a full marshmallow. Yep, on the top. Nice, I applaud the creativity, but. Okay, you are now hitting the 15-minute mark. 3 more minutes. At the end of it, you got to make sure the marshmallow's on top, unobstructed, unassisted.
Yes, we will.
Two minutes. 2 minutes. Hey, 1 more minute. 1 minute.
Let them see. They're gonna beat us by half an inch.
We have about 45 seconds left. But you guys are done. Yeah, okay. Down to the last 30 seconds, folks.
Hopefully there's.
Get their marshmallow.
Throw a pencil at theirs.
All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. We have 2 successfully standing structures. Let's do the tape here.
Yeah, but theirs is lean and.
Well, it's vertical. It's vertical. It's wherever the vertical ends. So
Okay.
I'm going to call that 22 and a half. Okay, 22 and a half.
I think we got 24.
I think we have 23.
Or 23 and a half, whatever they got, that's what we got.
Taped one more piece up.
Okay, 22 and a half. And it looks like 24. We have a winner. All right. Well, come on back down.
Hey, you leaners, come on back down.
Now you know they're going to argue theirs is taller because they're at a higher elevation, right?
I would
But it is
say-
from the tabletop up.
I would
So
say this shifts the entire balance of power.
we gotta get some pictures here. Make sure, because this is most of the time we do this, we have some fails. Good
Good
job.
job, man.
Let me get this. Get a shot up here.
Good job.
We'll just leave that there for memento's sake. And we had leftover materials too, just so you know.
The initial discussions made us nervous.
Yeah, we took half the time just
Just talking
discussing it.
about
Well, that's all part of it. Okay, if I can get the PowerPoint back up, great. Everybody have some fun with that?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the designs that happen. So you'll see a couple pictures here about how everybody does this differently. So there's no one right solution to this process. And, notice they've got one that's over close to 3 feet at that point as well. So,
Yeah, well, they're younger now.
well, you're gonna hear a little bit about what that's like. So let me show you. This is a neat little 10-minute TED Talk that explains kind of what this exercise is all about. And so we'll do that, and then we'll have some time for some reflection here.
Several years ago here at TED, Peter Skillman introduced a design challenge called the Marshmallow Challenge. And the idea is pretty simple. Teams of 4 have to build the tallest freestanding structure out of 20 sticks of spaghetti, 1 yard of tape, 1 yard of string, and a marshmallow. And the marshmallow has to be on top. And though it seems really simple, it's actually pretty hard because it forces people to collaborate very quickly. And so I thought this was an interesting idea, and I incorporated it into a design workshop, and it was a huge success. And since then, I've conducted about 70 design workshops across the world with students and designers and architects, even the CTOs of the Fortune 50. And there's something about this exercise that reveals very deep lessons about the nature of collaboration, and I'd like to share some of them with you. So, normally, most people begin by orienting themselves to the task. They talk about it, they figure out what it's going to look like, they jockey for power, then they spend some time planning, organizing, they sketch in, they lay out spaghetti. They spend the majority of their time assembling the sticks into ever-growing structures, and then finally, just as they're running out of time, someone takes out the marshmallow, and then they gingerly put it on top, and they stand back, and ta-da! They admire their work. But what really happens most of the time is that the ta-da turns into an uh-oh, because the weight of the marshmallow causes the entire structure to buckle and to collapse. So there are a number of people who have a lot more uh-oh moments than others. And among the worst are recent graduates of business school. It's amazing. They lie, they cheat, they get distracted, and they produce really lame structures. And of course, there's teams that have a lot more ta-da structures, and among the best are recent graduates of kindergarten. And it's pretty amazing, as Peter tells us. Not only do they produce the tallest structures, but they're the most interesting structures of them all. So the question you want to ask is, how come? Why? What is it about them? And Peter likes to say that none of the kids spend any time trying to be CEO of Spaghetti Inc., right? They don't spend time jockeying for power. But there's another reason as well. And the reason is that business students are trained to find the single right plan. Right? And then they execute on it. And then what happens is when they put the marshmallow on top, they run out of time, and what happens? It's a crisis. Sound familiar, right? Okay. What kindergartners do differently is that they start with the marshmallow and they build prototypes, successive prototypes, always keeping the marshmallow on top. So they have multiple times to fix, and they build prototypes along the way. So designers recognize this type of collaboration as the essence of the iterative process. And with each version, kids get instant feedback about what works and what doesn't work. So the capacity to play and prototype is really essential, but let's look at how different teams perform. So the average for most people is around 20 inches, business school students, about half of that, lawyers, a little better, but not much better than that, kindergartens, better than most adults. Who does the very best? Architects and engineers, thankfully. And 39 39 inches is the tallest structure I've seen. And why is it? Because they understand triangles and self-reinforcing geometrical patterns are the key to building self-reinforced stable structures. So CEOs, a little bit better than average, but here's where it gets interesting. If you put an executive admin on the team, they get significantly better. It's incredible. You know, you look around, you go, oh, that team's going to win. You can just tell beforehand. And why is that? Because they have special skills of facilitation. They manage the process. They understand the process. And any team who manages and pays a close attention to work will significantly improve the team's performance. Specialized skills and facilitation skills, the combination leads to strong success. If you have 10 teams that typically perform, you'll get maybe 6 or so that have standing structures. And I tried something interesting. I thought, let's up the ante once. So I offered a $10,000 prize of software to the winning team. So what do you think happened to these design students? What was the result? Here's what happened. Not one team had a standing structure. Not one had, if anyone had built, say, a 1-inch structure, they would have taken home the prize. So isn't it interesting that high stakes have a strong impact? We did the exercise again with the same students. What do you think happened then? So now they understand the value of prototyping. So the same team went from being the very worst to being among the very best. They produced the tallest structures in the least amount of time. So there's deep lessons for us about the nature of incentives and success. So you might ask, why would anyone actually spend time running a Marshmallow challenge? And the reason is I help create digital tools and processes to help teams build cars and video games and visual effects. And what the Marshmallow Challenge does is it helps them identify the hidden assumptions. Because frankly, every project has its own marshmallow, doesn't it? The challenge provides a shared experience, a common language, a common stance to build the right prototype. And so this is the value of the experience of this so simple exercise. And those of you who are interested may want to go to marshmallowchallenge.com. It's a blog that you can look at how to build the marshmallows. There are step-by-step instructions on this. There are crazy examples from around the world of how people tweak and adjust the system. There's world records that are on this as well.
trying to game the
fundamental
system.
lesson, I believe, is that design truly is a contact sport. It demands that we bring all of our senses to the task and that we apply the very best of our thinking, our feeling, and our doing to the challenge that we have at hand. And sometimes a little prototype of this experience is all that it takes to turn us from an uh-oh moment to a ta-da moment, and that can make a big difference. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, hopefully I can get.
We get t-shirts.
we get- All right. So, couple
Yeah, challenge.
observations.
You don't.
Half an inch.
I like your t-shirt. Marshmallow is still standing.
There we go. Exactly.
All right, guys, watch out.
So a couple observations, but I want to hear your thoughts as well. Most of the time, as you can see here, when you do this, you're going to have a variety of teams that wait to the very end to put the marshmallow on, only to have the moment in the process. But neither, so you were 2 for 2. That speaks well for the teams that were in play here today. You can collaborate and come together on that. But I want to get your thoughts, your impressions about what you learned, and then we'll have some takeaways coming out of this as well. So we'll start with, I guess, the leading team in terms of any thoughts or takeaways you had about having the tallest structure and how you got there.
Take it away, Captain
Go
TV.
ahead, you're the most philosophical of the 4 of us. You digress.
Well, we sat here and talked about it and figured out what would be the best way. And one of the ways was on the marshmallow itself. We did think about that early on how to incorporate that. Do we just stick one in and hopefully it stands? No, it's going to wobble. So we wanted to make a crown to let the marshmallow sit in so it had reinforcement. And then Phil started making the teepee and it already had the crown in it. And then we just made the base longer and took that top up higher and reinforced it all the way and then reinforced it to the table in a triangle. We did have other thoughts along the way, but kept working on this one and it just came out okay.
And without really discussing it, we kind of fell into a system whereby after we talked about it for wasted, well, not wasted, but used up about 5-6 minutes, and everybody sort of gravitated to an area of responsibility. Amber took care of taping, you took care of taking the tape and building. I tied them, he built the base, and then we fit it together. And it was strange because he didn't say, you do this, you do this, you do this.
Yeah, we all grabbed something to do.
You know, and Miss Amber may not realize how important her role was of passing out the tape, but it seriously was, because I was holding the pieces together and they needed more tape, so they couldn't stop what they were doing to get the tape and peel the tape and cut the tape, because then it would have like made everything fall apart.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner, but I don't know that that
I
was.
know, absolutely it was. And we have extra
She's
tape.
got her
Until you
master's in
work with
taping now.
spaghetti and realize how fragile it is.
It
you
is
know?
very fragile.
Along the way, she coached us to make sure we weren't breaking the rules.
And the funny thing about it too is going through this process, we were a little stressed out because we took so long talking. But when we looked up there, it was like, nah, we got this.
You had more confidence than I did. I wasn't sure you guys were going to have a structure as much as you worked, but you pulled it off. You definitely pulled it off as a team.
Yeah, when you said we had 6 minutes left, it was like, oh shit, just do it. Just put it together.
Okay. All right. How about Team B? Thoughts and impressions of your experience and how it all came together for you.
A similar process.
Yeah.
Although when we got right down to it, there were like 2 workers and 2 commenters.
Not that there's anything wrong with
That was
that.
someone trying to manage.
For the record, it was a team building exercise. So we decided to let the other team win to boost their confidence.
Oh,
You're
very
welcome.
How magnanimous.
No, but it's important that you do have somebody observing
Right.
from, so that they could say, oh, you need something here, because when you're so involved with your
Doing,
tasks, you
right.
don't see that, but
Right.
the bigger picture. So
Right,
that, just
right.
like you were saying, somebody has to be getting the materials ready, because that,
Right.
you don't have to stop what you're doing.
But you stated observing. Are you sure you didn't mean spying on the winning team?
No one looked over.
Well,
It's called market research.
there you go. The interesting part, I've never done this. We've been live on TV, and there's a lot of French that comes out in the midst of these conversations. I wasn't quite sure how that was going to play out or not on this one. So you guys did a wonderful
Very
job.
We
The
are,
fact
we
that-
are very conditioned to work in this
Exactly.
room with live mics.
Some of the groups I've been with, not so much, Debbie. We'll let it fly. Go, oh, beep, beep, beep. It didn't work the way they thought. Now it's scram.
Just like you patterned after the Seattle Tower, right? That's maybe subconsciously.
I heard a Space Needle comment here
Yeah.
come out of somewhere along the
Somebody said,
line
I
in the
think it was
Space
you
Needle.
that
Yeah.
All that out there? Yeah.
And we were talking TP
Well,
and
and
working
we-
it together.
We also recognized that, like, there must have been some psychology to this too. So the whole idea of team building, broader the base, stronger, higher you can grow it. So that was the concept too. That was the philosophy behind it. Not just to go as high as you could and fall over,
Well, we stayed up for quite a while.
That's right. All I had to do is at the time, it just had to be, unassisted. Didn't say how long. It's not going to stand the test of time for 100 years or something like that. But
But to cut through all this, I really think the learning experience from all this is duct tape solves most problems.
Nothing can't be fixed without that.
That's right.
Well, I have to compliment, in the midst of this, Heather said, do we need to have the full marshmallow on top of it? So she was thinking, creativity, that's always, I had to say, no, it's got to be the full marshmallow, but I appreciate the effort as well, so.
Or these.
Right.
Yeah.
Pieces and stick it to
Oh, I see, you're trying to break it up into
Yeah.
quarters or something like that, so. But, well, good. Well, hopefully, it's a fun exercise. It's meant to be a little bit of stress because you got the time limitation as well. And when we see this, we rarely have everybody have a successful, so give yourselves all a hand for getting the success on that. You had two structures to work, and they were actually pretty close at the end, so.
Yeah.
If I can go back to the PowerPoint again. So let me just give you a couple of takeaways as you think through this effort, that as I want you to think through the exercise you just went through, but it really is everything that you're working on as a team, as a council, as a staff, as you're trying to get your goals and priorities. Think through the things you just learned as a relatively simple exercise. I say that from watching it as opposed to having to do it this time. But the concepts here that I want you to walk away with is recognizing that your challenges can be you can foster a culture where you're invigorating and looking at options and status quo things. And so you're trying to encourage an innovative approach. There's no one set way of doing this. I guarantee if you do this again, you'll build something that might look similar, but you might build something entirely different. Remember the other pictures. There's no one size fits all here. And the concept here is to recognize there's not that only one way of doing things. Remember how they said the business students, typically graduates, they sued for one solution and they had more of the uh-oh moments than the ta-da moments at the end. So recognize there's not one way, and you really got to open up your thoughts on that.
Well, looking at this one, I can already see how we can better it by 2 inches.
There you go. There you go.
We can extend this up a little bit.
Would have fell down.
Not necessarily, not like that. I mean, but we're,
We have a tilted table, come on.
well, that's why we didn't build on her table.
There you go.
If we had more time, we could have gone up one more story.
Well, Phil talked too much.
Usually the case.
Are you not admiring that?
I am not. Look how great we are.
There you go. Well, a couple other takeaways. The concept of real-time feedback. It was fun to watch both tables because watching this exercise in a variety of different areas, a lot of people don't think of the marshmallow at the front end. They just think it's going to stick and stand. And they got, it's some weight, but nobody really thinks how heavy that marshmallow really is. It feels light. And so that concept of real-time feedback, are you watching, can it work, can it not work? That's the concept where they talk about prototyping, where kids will often say, well, let's try this. If it doesn't work, then we know it doesn't, and we'll learn from that approach. So that feedback loop is something that's very important to make sure that you don't get to the end line and you realize you're not going to get across the finish line in the process there. The other is instead of looking at one best answer, is this concept, there's a number of ways of doing it. You guys built the traditional triangle. It was an interesting concept because you started with a triangle and then you reversed it. Right. I'm thinking, well, you're going to have this little cantilever approach, but they both worked. I mean, at the end of the day, both of them worked. And so once again, there's not one simple solution to this, one best answer to this, but the concept is how do you look and understand how that collaboration, that concept of design can come together.
Where did y'all put your string?
Tied it up around here.
Commissioner Stokes like wove it through, he didn't just tie it around,
Proof that it's in there.
and then,
Yeah, they bound the top.
which created a very stable.
They used to use
Back to my
latchings.
Boy Scout days, making a teepee.
So the other thing was this common purpose that you had. There's a team. As a team, you're going to success or fail, and you're going to be competitive. I could see it. I mean, which team was going to win this one, how it was going to come together. You could keep an eye on what was going back and forth, and there was a little bit of looking over the shoulders from both teams to figure out what's going forward. But within your group, you knew what the goal was, and you shared in that purpose and that outcome. So that concept that you all had skin in the game in this one. And the last one is the outcomes. I told you what you needed to do, what the rules of the road were, what the objectives were, but at the end, it's up to you to figure out how you get there. I didn't tell you how to build it. I just said, here's the outcome that you need to accomplish. And so when you think about those kind of 4 takeaways in this exercise, obviously you just physically did this, but as we start thinking today and tomorrow for your strategic goals and your priorities and your plans, recognize that your outcomes may be desired, but how you get there may change. And the team that you have and the fostering of the innovation and the different thoughts and opinions amongst yourselves as you talk through these issues, as well as your team as they're developing strategies to implement the things that you've identified as goals, are going to be really critical. So if you get to thinking, here's what I want to do and here's the way I want it done, I'm going to bring you back to this exercise, because this is the reason of this, to realize there are different ways to get to the goal from there.
Well, I think it motivated me to have spaghetti and s'mores tonight.
There you go. And
Holding it together?
I have a sense that Pete's going to leave that there for
Right.
as long as it will stay, just as a testament to,
Yeah,
to the team's effort there. So,
See you
well,
on Tuesday.
well, good. Well, I hope you had some fun with that one as well. Are we okay, or do we need a bathroom break or anything of that nature? I've got plenty to go forward with.
Been here, what, an hour?
Been a little over an hour, so it's up to you. You want to take a quick break? I was going to go into the next item, so now's depends on how many questions we get.
Yeah, that's fine. We can move on and then take a
Okay,
break.
all right, okay, we'll go forward
I'm
from that
good.
point then. Okay, gotcha. All right, so let's talk about.
It's all up to Pete.
It's all to Pete? Well, I was opening this up for a conversation, and I didn't hear any objections to that.
Those were the bullet points we discussed.
I knew.
Never happy with the break.
I knew I stressed you all out having this exercise at the beginning, so I didn't know if you needed a chance to unwind from that point. So the afternoon today and tomorrow, we're going to be spending mostly talking about the future. And this is a chance for you to sit and think about where you're at today, learn about the things that your colleagues want to bring to the table, hear about what's working and what isn't working from your staff. But really, you're sitting and planning for the future of this community and the future of this organization. So I want you to start to think. Most organizations don't get a chance to do that very often. I'm a big Yogi Berra fan. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up somewhere else. So you got to have a destination point. And I think those of you who heard me say this before, your strategic vision ought to be like your GPS system in a car or on your phone that you use in your car. You know where you want to go, but you're going to take a variety of different paths around it. Typically, I come I-4 to 75. I didn't touch 75 until the very last part of my trip today because it was an accident, and it slowed everything down. So I went through this back roads that I've never been on before, but I knew my destination, and not one way. I got here a half an hour earlier than I thought I was going to get here, so that all worked out pretty well. So always keep in mind your priorities, your pillars, your priorities are your destinations. How you get there is likely to be moved around because of traffic or construction or finances or hurricanes or whatever the case will be, recognizing all you got to do is be able to pivot. So it should be a living, breathing document, but you should never lose sight of where you're trying to get to as an organization. So that being said, perspectives will matter based upon how people view things, and it doesn't make one right or one necessarily wrong. You look at this particular slide, it either looks like a circle or looks like a square, depending on your viewpoint, but they're both correct. Likewise, you are all likely to have different thoughts about a given issue, a given priority, a given approach, based upon where you're standing. And it doesn't make one right necessarily, one wrong. It's just how you're looking at the situation and the perspective you have. This one's a little trickier because it's an optical illusion, but they're both right, depending on the perspective, 4 or 3. So we're going to be talking today and tomorrow about a concept that SDR is very much embedded with. It's called strategic foresight. And what that is looking forward to the trends and things that are happening now and trying to project potential outcomes of those trends down the road. And just like as you built your spaghetti structure, there's not one outcome based upon things that are occurring today. So strategic foresight tends to look at all the things that are happening and then will present a variety of different paths which might become outcomes. And you might think you're going to be landing on these two more than those two, but that's your own perspective in the matter. But there's no one simple direction that's going to happen because obviously we don't know what the future is. All we can do is look at what's happening and try to extrapolate that information. But the fact that you're sitting here today and tomorrow thinking about the future and talking about the what ifs gets you kind of in that mind of a strategic foresight approach. Now, as I mentioned, SDR is very much aligned with this. We actually have 3 strategic foresight folks. They're called futurists for the layman's of the group. And we were about a year and a half ago asked to take over a function called the Alliance for Innovation, AFI, which used to be run from ICMA. And they asked us to turn around and basically run the program for them, since we were doing this type of work as a contractual basis, the number of cities. You guys are members of AFI as well, so you get some of the reports as we go forward as well. So I want to talk a little bit, because it's hard to have these types of sessions without recognizing the landscape in which you're operating in. And part of the landscape has to do with polarization. We see it, I will tell you, in my 35 years in active city management and the 7.5 years as a consultant, what used to just be the polarization at the federal level has filtered to the state level, which is often filtered at the local level. And it manifests itself differently in different communities, and it's stronger in some areas than others, but it's happening because the thoughts of polarization are starting to become just the natural landscape we all have to operate on. And I also talk about how local government touches your citizens in more ways than any other level of government. You think about when you get up in the morning, you turn on your lights. Many times there's municipal electric utilities. They provide the electric. You go to brush your teeth. You turn on the water. The water's coming from the city. You go to the bathroom. You flush the toilet. The toilets and the sanitary sewer systems are run by the city. You get out, you get in your car, and you're driving down the road. Most of your local roads are under your jurisdiction. There'll be state and federal, clearly, if you're on that. But most of the roads you're on, getting in and out of wherever you're going, are probably going to be local roadways. The traffic lights, the traffic signals, the street lights, all the things that make it safer, the sidewalks, if your kids are walking to school or walking to the school bus stop, those are being provided by your local government level. If, God forbid, there's an accident, the police department, the fire department, those are all being done. So you think about all that versus what the state provides or what the feds provide. You think about, in the course of the day, how many ways you touch your citizens' lives in what you do at the local government level. So when polarization starts to come in, it starts affecting how are you affecting all your citizens and what are they bringing to the table. So a simple definition from polarization coming out of Webster: divergence of attitudes away from the center towards ideological extremes. So I'm going to use that as the foundation here. So what you can see through these slides is that we as a country are becoming much more polarized. Now, this is certainly looking at Republicans and Democrats, with the Democrats being on the left side being considered as liberal, the Republicans being conservative on the right side in red. You can see from 1994 that the gap was relatively slow, or relatively narrow. A little bit different, but pretty close in 2004, but then go another 10 years out in 2014 and you see a wide. I apologize, I don't have the same study going further, but this trend I think you would see is going in the same direction. Is probably that schism is much bigger yet. So that breadth of that difference is becoming wider and wider. It's affecting the viewpoints of government at whatever level you may be facing, at whatever party that case may be. Now, the other difference is that not just the gaps of perceptions, is the literally squaring off of positions where it's us versus them, the tribal politics, if you will, going forward. As you can see in this slide going back, these are out of the same study out of Pew Research, 2014, 27% that thought that the Republican Party was a threat to the nation's well-being, and 36% of the Republicans felt that way about the Democrats. And you can see that trend rising as well. So not only are we're just becoming more polarized, we're getting into our own respective corners, and we're viewing the people on the other side of the table differently than we have in the past, with much more stronger opinions about their thoughts and beliefs. This one's a fairly recent Edelman study of 2023. This is the Trust Barometer. If you look at the different countries that are identified here, you can see that US and Colombia, Argentina, South Africa, Spain, and Sweden are some of the most severely polarized countries in the world. UK, France, Brazil, Italy in the middle there, in danger of becoming severe, and then you can go to this side of the area. So if it's feeling this way to you, you're right. There's data that says what's happening out there and why that is affecting you. So we start to then drill down into the local level concept, and Route 50, I don't know if any of you get this newsletter. It's a freebie newsletter. You can grab it online. The civic engagement with local government is becoming much more terse, intense. A number of you said that even here in terms of public comment sections and the attitudes and just the way in which the citizens are engaging with you. And I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying that's not unique to Northport. I will tell you, I work all over the country and you see that happening overall. overall. But this one, percentage of mayors reporting psychological abuse from the public increased by 23% between 2017 and 21. And then mayors in particular reported physical abuse rose by nearly 5% during the same period. So it's getting tough to do the work that you all do here. Now, let me elaborate a little bit more on that study. So if you look at communities that are 30,000 and above, based on this study, it said that 95.7% had that psychological abuse, and then the physical abuse actually went above and beyond that. It's almost 14% of mayors. These are people getting struck and physically threatened in their jobs, in the role. So this is happening out there. Probably one of the reasons you typically have a law enforcement officer in your meetings. There were times when I first started this business that was never happening. The security measures going into city halls, all those things are changing because of this as well. So just be tuned in that this is the market. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of communities that are part of our AFI system, our family in the process. We've done some surveying of them. We wanted to get a sense of how much is this affecting local government workers? Not just you as elected officials, it's the people doing the job of the local government as well. So when you break that out, what you're going to see is 32% significant amount, 36% moderate amount. More than half, almost 2/3 of the group out there, 16%. Same sort of survey when we ask about if the government's been impacted by polarization, what areas have you felt the most of that area? The three biggest areas are council interactions, resident engagement with local government, and resident animosity, hostility, or combativeness towards government employees. These are your colleagues out in the business across the country responding to those items. You can see, the responses are different, but the top three are really getting more and more challenging of what you're doing here. The other thing, I thought I include this slide because of the growth that you're experiencing and the growth Florida's experiencing as well. It used to be people would just relocate largely because of jobs. What we're now finding is people are relocating because of political beliefs. And so the migration, this was a study that was done by Redmond coming out of California and from Los Angeles in particular about where they went, and you can get a flavor for that. But the concept is that people are now moving because of where they feel comfortable relative to their political beliefs. And so the concept here is as you're growing, like much of Florida, but you're in accelerated fashion, many of you, we'll talk a little bit later about wanting to keep the identity, the small town feelings. And a couple of you said, wherever you've been in the past, when you come here, let's not repeat everything you didn't like about the past. Don't do it again here, otherwise we're going to have the same problem here as well. So recognize in periods of growth, folks are going to be coming in and they may have a different set of values, they may have a different belief, they may have a different reason for coming here than what you did or your family did, especially long-term residents. Either good or bad, it's just recognizing the divergence that are happening there. The other issue is local government. This is typically covered by local newspapers. But what's happened with local newspapers, you can see a lot of papers have closed. And now local papers certainly cover the national and international news, but there's always a local perspective of that. And what's happening is as these papers go away, you're finding that people don't have an alternative source for information. So what that does is they tend to become, if they read national news or watch national news, they tend to think more partisan. They read local news and local coverage, they tend to think more like locals. And so recognizing with this gap, what can cities do to help encourage people to stay local and understand all those things I talked about that affects their lives every single day has nothing to do with the federal government or the state government along the line. So just realize that that's taking place as well. The other thing that's taking place is studies. This one was done by the Royal Society, and it is basically starting to draw conclusions that the polarization becomes almost like a form of addiction. And I will tell you, I've got friends that are on left side and the right side, far left and far right, a bunch in the middle as well. And it's amazing to me that I've seen that discussion go further where it's almost like that's all they listen to, whether it's right or left. And when you start to challenge it, it gets very, very tense. Never physical in my case, but the bottom line, they're saying it's almost like an addiction. The more you read, the more you follow in the process. So that's a scary thought, just recognizing it as well. The bottom line out of all that, and there's a much more detailed report that we can share and you've got as part of your AFI relationship, it's not going to go away. This is going to continue. The good news is that when we survey our respondents in AFI's membership base, what is the role of local government and what role can you play to help deal with the polarization issues? And what you're going to see here is almost, 39, 50, 61% feel that it should play a major role or at least a moderate role. So you have an opportunity as local government leaders and as a community and a local government as a whole to be a broker of conversation and discussion and hopefully a sense of collaboration, just like you built the structures here, is that you're dealing with issues that affect a lot of people and you must deal with that as well. So the other issue is that there is hope for this. If you get to the concept where you're in a participatory government, where you're doing outreach and programs and getting feedback, a lot of the surveying that you're doing, the workshops that you have, the approach for people to participate. We'll talk a little bit later about voting on priorities. You actually did that last year. You had some voters that participated in an online survey. All that gives a better sense of that sense of belonging, which was one of the goals that many of you, almost all of you, spoke about, of wanting to retain that hometown feel. So I know it's hard out there, and I've given you some reasons to be concerned, but in the same token, if it's not done at the local level, where's it going to happen? It's certainly not going to happen at the state level, and I don't think anytime soon it's going to happen at the federal level. So you have a role to play here in trying to do the best you can and bringing your communities together on issues that really do affect their lives every single day. So what I'm going to say is it's okay for you to have different thoughts and opinions about where you think the community ought to go and the role of government. And this next one I really appreciate because we always talk about how big government or small government, the concept of the fact you get stuck in a tree, all of a sudden you want a fire truck to come out and help you. So you got to have some level of that. So it's okay about that. You're going to have different thoughts, you're going to have different opinions, and that's okay. That's what makes us unique, just like we have different thoughts and opinions about building spaghetti structures as well. So I want to highlight another clip here that will give you a sense of a word, a concept called VUCA. Has anybody heard of VUCA, V-U-C-A? Okay, so we're going to walk through what VUCA is. VUCA came out of the War College programming, and it talks about how governments, and specifically armies, have to deal with a variety of changing and evolving things that happen around them, but they still have a mission to accomplish. So this clip, I think, will drive that home for you.
Omaha Beach. Finding Private Ryan.
shore. We got no DD tanks on the beach. Dog 1 is not open. Who's in command here?
You.
Pretty powerful stuff. And I don't mean to imply that every Tuesday night or Monday night when your council meeting, commission meetings happen, that it feels like that. But the bottom line is that you are planning for a lot of things on an ongoing basis going forward that you don't have all the information available to you. And you think about the masses of the strategic command to plan for D-Day, they didn't know exactly what they were going to happen. At the end of the day, they had to make a bunch of course corrections, they had to make adjustments, but they had a goal in mind to keep, and what that was is to be able to take the beach and start the invasion. And so the point recognizing is that no matter where you're at, you have to get that balance of having enough information to feel that you've got a course direction to take without feeling you've checked off every box every time. Because I guarantee you, no matter what you've studied for, whatever you prepared for, you're going to have a change. You had that last summer when the hurricane hit. And your staff had to flex and deal and adapt to circumstances they probably have never dealt with in the past. A number of you said, we had flooding in areas. We never had flooding in the past. That's what I'm getting at. Those things are going to happen, and you have to be able to manage it and be comfortable that you're making the best decisions you have at a given point in time with the information you have available, recognizing if you study it to death, you'll be paralysis by analysis. So it's one of those, it's a balance. You've got to get to some level of comfort. But the concept of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, when you think about, just think about your last meeting. How many items did you deal with that VUCA had a play in some way, shape, or form? But you don't stop. You still have to move forward. So as you think about the future on this, just recognizing that's the landscape you're trying to navigate, and it's uncertain. The direction is never entirely correct. Now, that being said, you're going to make decisions, and they're not always going to be right. So a couple things there. You may remember when the freighter jammed up the Suez Canal. At least you're not doing it. Probably the mistakes you make are not going to be seen from outer space for the most part. Along the line. But if you're going to be worried, there's also some scenarios that are closer. Those who like football in Minnesota, notice that they blew the midfield local on the 45-yard line versus the 50-yard line. So recognize you're going to make some mistakes along the line. You got to live with them, go forward, and just go in that direction. So I used this slide last year. You know I'm a big flyer. I fly a lot with Southwest, and I try to say that your role as elected officials is to set the tone, the direction, the vision of the organization, the vision of the community, because you hold a special place with your residents and your electors who put you into office, and they're asking you to be the board of directors of a very large and complex moving operation. And if you're doing the work of staff, then you're not doing the work of setting the goal and the vision and direction that you're taking. Board of directors typically have that long-term vision, where you want to be, what you want to do, and the staff will then figure out how to best get you there and do those things. And there's a relationship between the board and your executive staff. So as the next thing we're going to walk our way through, before that, is any comments, any questions, anything I've talked about there in terms of understanding the operating environment between polarization and VUCA and the challenging that face in terms of the day-to-day functions of running a government? Everybody, I know I'm preaching to the choir. You see this, so you probably know this, but it's just helpful to just recognize you're not alone. It's a very tough job that you're in right now, and the best thing you can do is just try to plan for the future as best as possible with the information you've got, and then make course corrections going forward.
It's also helpful when I talk to residents who bring up what ifs. Because I deal with this with other situations. What if this? And like you said, that could just paralyze you from even going anywhere, because you can think about a million what ifs. But at the end of the day, we have to have just a clear vision and plan. And like you said, stuff happens. So, but knowing that will help me communicate that better to residents that are having concerns about certain things, and just for them to understand that we have to have a goal where we want to get to. And yes, stuff's going to happen, and we adjust our strategy as things come up, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do anything
Mhm.
from the very beginning because that might happen or this may occur.
Absolutely. And there will be people that don't want to take action because they're scared of not knowing what's going to take place.
Right,
And inaction, as much of an action as taking an action or direction,
right.
because it closes doors or potentially prevents you from taking opportunities that might have otherwise come in a window of time to advance.
Especially with the aftermath of Ian, because we have a lot of residents who are from other parts of the country, and that need for planning, when having a plan, and people are used to, this is my plan, and knowing how that's going to turn out. And Ian was something that nobody could have
Throw it all in the
figure
air.
that out. Like,
Yep.
okay, we get hit by a Category 5, this is what I'm going to do. Nobody expected that. And I think that was a lot of the anxiety that people felt afterwards, because there was, no matter what they did, it wasn't enough to prepare for that,
Mhm.
for everybody, to a certain extent. So that helped me to really understand where they were coming from, too.
Absolutely. Bill?
You know, you touched on polarization, and it is a real issue, especially with some of the complexities of trying to run a city that's growing as fast as there you go.
It was her windy paper knocked it down.
Yeah, and Phil, speak
My
up.
hot air.
I talked about Hurricane Ian, that's why. There it goes. Ooh.
It lasted the test of time.
That's right. But, you know, and then you throw in hurricanes and you throw in COVID and you throw in those things. And as leaders try to decide what's best, it really does contribute to the polarization. And it comes back to 3 areas. I mean, I was making notes as we were watching, and it's really education and communication and transparency and inclusiveness that's going to draw the public back in. We have the best chance to do it, I think, on the local level. And it's the most challenging because the people it's more visceral, it's more personal at the local level. The level of animosity can be greater with regard to our interaction with our public, but the harder we make that effort, the easier it becomes, and it can be frustrating. But I think there's the answer. There's where we make our difference in those 3 areas. And, you know, people scream for it. You hear it on social media, you hear it in person, you hear it everywhere. And we can go 2 ways with it. We can embrace it and address it, or we can stand up to it and push it back. And I think that's the bad optics. So it's interesting because as a group, we're an eclectic group of people. We have different perspectives. We're strong-willed. We have real, you know, belief systems, and yet we've got a public out there that we really do answer to. And so I think those 3 areas are where we make this work over the next 4 to 8 years as a group, and hold the city together. It all plays to our community of unity.
And I think a lot of it too is choosing our battles. Where do we lead?
And where
Where do we respond?
beautiful.
So I'm thinking of our conversation just yesterday about managing public comment. Were you thinking about that too? Yeah. And do we allow it? You know, if people are very agitated and very negative and tearing the city down or individuals down, is it their right to do that? Is it our responsibility to try to mitigate that? It's like a real balance.
I want to make sure I didn't look. You talked communication, transparency. What was your 3rd one? I want to make sure I use your words. Inclusiveness. Okay, gotcha. I wanted to capture those because as you think through your goals and your priorities and the projects that you want to do, I want you to just kind of keep those thoughts in mind as we're going through this stuff. Because as I said, there's no one way of doing this, but what you want to do is have a philosophy of approach, at least. And to your point as well, you know, where do we lead? Where do we fall? Where do we let things, or where do we say that's I understand, but maybe that's not your priority right now. given the other pressing needs of the organization and the community. There. Okay. All right, I can get the slide back up again. Up there. Oh, slide, slide back up, slide. We'll get this together. All right, okay. So since I've worked with Northport for a long time now, I've gotten a pretty good feel for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But what I've done for organizations like yours, when I'm coming back year to year, I think it's helpful to pause and say, what has happened in the last 12 months that may have fundamentally changed the traditional strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And so that was the way I posed the question to all of you, so you get a chance to feel for what looks and feels different as you plan for the future, as you revise your annual strategic planning process and visioning process. So we're going to only talk about the things that were really different as you saw them individually and collectively. So under the strengths, a perspective that the community outreach through a concept of Northport United or community of unity. I've heard it referred to in both ways. There's a sense that Jerome has now gotten through his first year, that he's having that impact that was desired. The fact that you're filling staff vacancies and positions, and the staff feels that there's a sense of direction. There's a sense of support for the staff as well that wasn't necessarily always felt in the past. And the fact that you're becoming more diverse in terms of your staffing. People aren't necessarily just coming from smaller communities going up. They've come from larger communities coming down. So they bring some different thoughts and viewpoints in, and that's having an impact as you're facing the pressures of demand of the development world. Some other strengths. You, like a good portion of Florida, your property values continue to go up, so you're gaining value in your homes. Noted that your second fastest growing community in the United States. It's desirable. That I'm seeing a lot of new construction. I was amazed. I came in a different way than I normally do to get a feel for that. And I saw a number of new homes being constructed here as well. Strength of Sarasota Memorial with 2 hospitals being proposed, $1 billion to be invested in 2 different locations. That is one of your priorities. I remember we spent a lot of time last year talking about that and the desire for improved health care and accessibility. With growth, right now, you're getting the benefit of the fact of increased valuation in your properties, and you're certainly getting impact fees and things of that nature. So you've been able to keep up with that, but you're likely to have to deal. There'll be some pressures on that later as things slow down and change out as well. And this concept of outreach communications, getting back to communication, Phil, you raised it one about how do you push your message out and what that process is. So things are all being viewed as strengths. In the area of weaknesses. This concept of political distrust, and that it sometimes can take a lot longer to make a decision by trying to check all the boxes to get things through. And this is that point of how much information do you need to have to make a final decision to make the direction. Clearly, the impact of Hurricane Ian. You have not had a Category 5, and probably, has the history ever, Northport ever seen a Category 5? Yeah.
Not on the west,
Yeah.
in Florida, not on the west coast.
Yeah, I was thinking that we had, Homestead was the last 5 we had, I think, yeah. There.
Through one in Hawaii when I was stationed over there.
Okay, yeah. So clearly that was something nobody, we always have to prepare for it, but in the same token, until you're in it, you don't really know what you got to deal with till you see what's happening there. Discussion, I know it's been in your plan as well. There are concerns about not having enough industrial and commercial acreage. Still recouping the cost of Hurricane Ian. Those are big dollars that you have to be able to pay your contractors and vendors through. If you get through everything, at best you're going to get 95% of that back through the feds and the state, but it's going to take a while. So cash flow becomes a factor as well. That was a factor of concern. Clearly, a year ago, we weren't talking about the cost of capital inflation. A couple of you had raised that as a concern. The fact that because of that, more and more people are requiring second incomes to live. And infrastructure challenges, water, sewer, storm runoff, things like that. Clearly, I know the nature of the history of this community with swales and things of that nature being developed as a residential area, I'm sure stressed its limit. And I saw the news when you had areas that were underwater for a while after the hurricane had passed because it just had nowhere to go forward. And I'm sure that'll be part of our conversation as well. And there's still this concept of you wanting to get to a live, work, and play approach in Northport. You're getting the sense you're still living here, but play and work is still occurring outside. So those were concerned as weaknesses that were raised. Under the opportunities, the hardening of the facilities in the wake of the storms. One of you had mentioned something about a police department and doing roof and repairs and things of that nature. The opportunity to put money aside for proactive infrastructure work. Maybe that's easier now that people have seen the impacts of what your infrastructure can or can't necessarily handle. A desire for focusing more on affordable housing opportunities. I will tell you that's something almost every city I work in across the country is dealing with. There's no one simple solution to that, but everybody's grappling with it. And an opportunity associated with Warm Mineral Springs, your public-private partnership, your P3 RFP that's out there. And I don't know, when's that coming back in? March 15th. So you're getting close to seeing what that might start to look like as well. Cost associated with that. How do you pay for that stuff? And now that it's all yours, and what's that private partnership look like? And the growth of home-based businesses. How does that affect your infrastructure, your needs, your zoning, your the special use permits, things of that nature? Those are all things that are happening now and may get people to stay and work in your community in addition to living here as well. Under threats, this concept of less trusting of government, that it's affected the tone of your meetings, public comment section, just interactions that many of you have had with citizens. Certainly the impact of Hurricane Ian. You've been through one now. Are you going to be ready? The storm season is going to come on you're quicker than you think. And there's still a lot of people that are impacted by that. This concept as affordable housing is becoming more and more of a challenge given the price of your housing. And the good news, it's raising your assessed valuations, so you're getting more dollars. New construction certainly adding to the coffers of the city, but at some point is also impacting the affordability of people wanting to be in this area. And do you price out people through gentrification issues? Are they going to be able to stay in their home long term? I don't remember what your demographics were, but I know you've got a significant senior portion here. At some point, they are protected, but if they start selling their homes and other seniors are buying them, they're coming in at higher values. Whole issue of growth, and this recognition that although you're kind of living off some of that growth right now, but you've got other fees that are likely to be increasing in some of your special assessment districts as well. And there's still recognition that you're at the tail end of the pandemic and Hurricane Ian. That's certainly a factor of unknowns and uncertainty. We talked earlier with the number of tarps that are already on your roofs and signs that are still damaged as well. So those are some of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Did I capture anything that any of you told me that maybe I didn't rephrase appropriately in any of those sections? I feel like they're all coming from you. Yes, Debbie.
One of the threats that I shared during mine was the lack of housing.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And maybe
I was trying to get it with the
it's
affordable housing and I know I've got some other stuff about tiny homes and things later and some of the feedback, but in terms of
housing is definitely a threat for our community. It's getting so priced out.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get through some of the other feedback that we've gotten to so that you can kind of hear yourselves talk on some of the efforts. So the things that you wanted, I asked you all a sense of what are the things that you feel need to be addressed this year at the strategic planning. And not surprisingly, and this is one that came up, Debbie, your point, I knew I had it here somewhere coming into the area. Resiliency was one. It's not fresh in everyone's mind. It's still something that's in front of everyone there. There's some discussion we'll talk through tomorrow about whether it becomes a seventh pillar for consideration to keep it fresh in everybody's perspective and keep it mindful. Debbie talked about housing issues, and maybe we need another pillar on housing because you are still a significantly affected community based on residential growth. Even if you change your percentages of developable for industrial and commercial activities, you still have a lot of residential growth here, and can you make that work? On the flip side of the coin is how do you pay for that stuff? So there's been some discussion by several of you to talk about changing zoning and development to allow higher valued construction and opportunities to help pay for the services that you provide. And some idea to further prioritize some of the priorities that you have in pillars. We're going to spend some time at the end of tomorrow about where you are and the number of priorities and the number of action steps involved, that they all can't be treated equally or something's not going to likely get advanced. One of the things that to set the tone is I've asked you about at the end of the time, whenever that period is, when you say, I'm done with public service, whether it's after term limits or you step aside or whatever, what are the things that you want to leave as a legacy? And these are things that I want to have in front of you because they should be reflected in your goals and priorities. So environmental focus on programs and development, and retaining green space. There's a lot of thoughts about tree ordinances and preservation of that. A sense that in the midst you are a community of neighborhoods and neighborhood associations. And how do you make sure that people feel close to each other and closer to the bigger part of Northport as a whole? There's still a discussion, a desire that you want to have gathering spaces to socialize. A couple of you talked about how you're trying to do that individually, but how do you do that as a community? Those are some things that have been reflected in your goals and priorities. The fact that you're citizen and customer focused, that's an important element. And getting back to this point of inclusiveness and communication and transparency that Phil talked about as well. Proud of the fact that you went through the community pool. I know that was a tough decision. That was done several years ago. It's now up and running, but there's some pride in the fact that that was something that was a legacy that you'll leave as part of this commission. The Brave Stadium being located in Northport, there's a recognition that that was not just the city, but that was a multi-part strategy, but nonetheless, you get called home. Welland Park development, I know that brings some challenges that you're facing in terms of de-annexation, but you're proud of the fact that that's a significant development. The fact that there are still some projects that need to get done that we just haven't had a chance to finish up yet in the effort, and that recognizing that your time, whether it's 1 term or 2 terms or whatever the window is that you're on, that time will go quickly. I know right now, Phil, as the newbie, is probably going to feel like it's all ahead of you. I'm sure those of you who've been on for a couple of years, you can see how quickly things pass, and you only have a snapshot of time to accomplish the goals and objectives. There's a recognition that the commission is willing to really deal with tough issues, to sit and grapple and deal with it, as opposed to being like an ostrich and putting your head in the sand with it. And you're part of the team that helped Northport turn the corner on its reputation, brand, and direction. I know in earlier years, I heard a lot of conversations about, hey, we're the biggest city in the county. We ought to act like the biggest city. We ought to have a different perception, and we shouldn't walk around with a chip in our shoulder type of approach. So that was a concept of a legacy that wanted to be left here as well. Some other thoughts? The Warm Mineral Springs Master Plan. I know we've gone through a variety of iterations where you had, now you own it, you ran it for a while, you had a private partnership where they were doing the running of it. Post-storm, now you're going through a different model in that effort. Think about what I mentioned earlier, VUCA. Things have happened there that you probably never anticipated, but you had to still keep some direction, and that gives pause for concern by some folks. Others have opportunities there as well, so you don't know what that looks like. A desire that you can have a business leadership center, an accelerator, business accelerator, this concept of having economic development activity occurring in the community as opposed to residential growth. Some roadway improvements, Biscayne Boulevard and Price Boulevard widening. A desire, hopefully a legacy you leave is more east-west connectors within the city, and that you've stabilized your government. You've gone through some transitions in managers in the past. The last slide on legacies. You took your time to learn the issues, work hard, do the best you can, setting the stage for the future, growing the city while keeping its character in a financially sustainable manner, and maintaining Northport green spaces in a strategic manner. So those were, I gave you the legacy questions. What is it, that you really want to make sure happens during your time? So hopefully you saw your comments up there, but did I miss anything or mischaracterize anything that any of you had said?
Said them much more eloquently.
Well, I try. Sometimes I'll hear from different people, so I try to morph it. That may not be identical to what I heard, but hopefully those are items. So we're going to come back to those at the end of this process to make sure that the legacy you're leaving is manifested in the plans and the strategies that you're outlining as well. So you all chuckled, but I told you I'm big on giving you magic wands. And so I gave you an opportunity to have a magic wand. I gave you 2 questions. Number 1, if you could change one thing, if you're a king or queen for the day, regardless of cost, politics, dynamics, whatever, what would you change? And then I flipped the coin and said, what do you want to make sure you keep the same? So these are also thoughts about, as you're thinking about your future, what each of you are thinking about in terms of what you would like to change and what you'd like to keep the same. Mentioned, I think one of the comments I said earlier, that a lot of people come in your community and they're coming with their own baggage, and your culture, your DNA, your look and feel in Northport probably looks and feels differently from where they came. And how do you get them to kind of embrace that versus trying to change that to the way wherever they may have come from? I think that's how it was described to me. A desire for more commercial and industrial land use and acreage in Northport to support multi-jurisdictional or multi-types of financing of your operations. I know you've been working on the de-annexation issue for a while. That's kind of lingering on. You'd like that to be over, and like that to ultimately land where people can work, live, play, and call Northport your home. Continuing the path on attracting good development. You're starting to get some chat. A number of you spoke highly about the changes you made in your development. You're still working on your ULDC, but there are certainly changes that are happening, and there's some interest occurring there. And you'd like to see some additional developers coming into the community and making an investment in Northport. On the flip side, what do you want to change about Northport? The ability to annex some additional property outside of Warm Mineral Springs. That's outside the community. I know you've got acreage that under your P3 concept, but you still have some other acreage around there that might be something that would be a valuable target for development within the city. A desire for more people to stay in Northport versus having to leave for work. A desire to have more people engage with city government and nonprofits. And the fact that you have a lot of people, especially on your senior citizens and your retirees that are here, that might have been CEOs or finance folks or HR directors or whatever that looks like, parks folks, having them serve on your boards and commissions. So that they bring that talent and expertise and can provide direction and feedback that you might not otherwise get on your boards and commissions. I love this one. At the end of the day, what do you want to change? That everything that you have in your plan would get done. And hopefully get done sooner than later, but recognizing that it was done. I got a chuckle out of that one. And there's a recognition that it's still, government by its very nature the process takes time. It's not built to turn like a jet ski on a dime unless you're in a critical emergency situation. But this approach of broadening the tax base, how do we fund and fix infrastructure challenges, literally in Southwest Florida. You're kind of in this area that is now catching up to the rest of the development. And you can see it, you can feel it, you can feel those pressures every day, I'm sure. I know you're building. I don't know what your building permit folks are doing, but I got to believe they're blowing through the roof right now. Absolutely. And you're trying to keep up with that. At the same time, you're trying to grow systems to address that as well. Those are things you want to change and things you want to keep the same. I'll ask the question before I go. I don't think there's an. Oh, sorry. Let me stop there for a second. Anything about changing things that I missed? Sound familiar to everybody? Okay. Talk about things in the midst of all that stuff that we just talked about wanting to change. What do you want to make sure you retain? And there's almost unanimity amongst the five of you in your comments. How do you keep the natural character, the beauty, the small town feel, the level of service, the quality of life that you have that brought you here and has kept you here? How do you keep all that? And how do you do that in the midst of so many pressures happening around you? And how do you pay for all that stuff? That's what things you want to make sure you keep the same. Those were kind of the number of you had commented on those, but hopefully those are reflective of your statements as well. And then I asked you as well, I gave you that magic wand back and said, think 10 years out, which is going to be beyond most of your terms of an 8-year, 2 terms of 4 years in a window. So looking long term, what do you want to make sure that Northport has that you don't presently have? And there's some symmetry on this one as well. A lot of you spoke about Warm Mineral Springs, that it becomes, the jewel, and many of you talked about the jewel and the destination and international and national recognition of that. You don't have a beach, but you do have the Warm Mineral Springs. So how do you capitalize on that and make that work? And there's some different paths to take in that approach. This concept of affordability, maybe tiny homes, container homes, starters, new things like that could be a factor of consideration that you don't have in your mix today. I know in previous years you made the decision to use some ARPA funding and other state grants to help push utilities out to I-75 in your corridors to allow that to be developed and have infrastructure in place, that those would be fully commercialized and developed. Another activity center, number 6, that would start to be coming out of the ground as well, the activity there. Additional primary jobs, specific, one of you said 2 or 3 great primary employers in Northport. Trying to, once again, keep people that live, work, and play here. How you work with your council and your administration. Been some discussion about central downtown area for commerce, restaurants, music, etc. And also diminishing, getting back to this primary jobs, diminishing the number of exports, the people that are going out. And to do that, there may be a recognition of job training that's needed to help those employers here as well. And then this other concept of how much is dedicated for residential growth versus commercial and industrial acreage. And how does that hopefully pay for that versus being overly reliant on residential tax. So those were kind of the magic wand 10-year out visions. Did I miss anything? You saw parts of what you raised there?
Do a good job.
I tried to. As I said, I want to get these in front of you because we're going to talk largely tomorrow, but certainly, at the end of the day tomorrow, I want to go back to that effort. Okay, so maybe why don't we take a break now? We've been going strong for a little bit. I'm showing right now at 3 o'clock, so we've been going 2 hours. You want to take a 10-minute break? Work for everybody? Okay. And we'll come back and we'll get into the vision, mission, and values of the
He
organization.
wants a half-an-hour break.
Take the So we're going to now kind of move from the higher level stuff to work into the actual strategic vision document that you have in play. The goal here today is to get through at least going through the vision statement, the mission statement, the organizational values. If there's still time, we can start into the first part of the next round, if you will, of what we're doing. But if you want to also wrap up early today, that's fine as well. So we'll go through. But the thought was, want to at least get the vision, mission, and values out of the way so that you can focus largely tomorrow on the pillars and your priorities. So as we went forward, last year, as I said, we kind of blew up the plan. You had a plan that was in place. It was a desire to say it really hadn't been acted upon. So we said, all right, we'll use that as a foundational document. But quite frankly, your plan looks entirely different. The structure, the language, the tone of it looks entirely different than where you started with. So we spent a lot of time on coming together on what your vision statement would be as your mission statement, your visions, and then your pillars. But I want to focus first and foremost on your vision statement. And as I say, typically, as we work with communities to do strategic planning and strategic visioning, your vision statement is the highest level. It's kind of the umbrella, if you will, that fits over the entirety of your strategic plan. And it really is that, where do you want to be as a destination? We'll get into the details and into the individual pillars that talk about how you get there later. But the vision statement is really the part that sets the tone for the organization. So we ended up with language that said an innovative, friendly, engaging, and sustainable community where residents, businesses, and visitors can flourish. So this is back to you now at this stage. Does that vision statement still reflect everything you want it to do? Can you capture the things that you believe are going to be important as an organization, as a community, under the language that you have there? Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to change it? Do we need to do something different with it? But that's where we landed last year. So I'll turn it over to you for thoughts and opinions of whether that's still appropriate.
I like it. I forgot, I just read it again, and I said, wow, that's pretty good.
We'll tell you that at the end of the day, your vision, mission statements are something that almost, number one, hopefully it's something you can all, I've worked with some communities that had paragraphs, and I try to get them down because if you or your employees can't recite your vision statement, it's probably too long. Because they ought to be able to recognize whether they're a department head, whether you're an elected official, or whether you're cutting grass or you're brushing, blowing grass off the sidewalk, what your vision statement and what your mission statements are. So we tend to like them to be relatively concise, but also set the direction so they know what they're doing and how it affects where you're going as an organization. So here, one that looks good. Bill?
As the newbie.
Yeah, you get a chance to chime in.
It's a good, solid, general vision statement. In light of probably the last year, maybe, what popped into my head as I read it again was something to the effect of engage and address our goals and challenges. Because I think, from my observation before and now in the short months I've been on the commission, this is a commission that really embraces those challenges and is not of a mindset to kick things down the road. And it's a commission that is willing to do the heavy lift and make the tough decisions. Maybe that could be integrated in a few short words into that vision statement. Someone will also have to make it shorter because, me, not that good at making it short. But
Okay, Debbie?
He pointed at you, ma'am.
Didn't see.
I know.
So I think innovative kind of sums that up. Because if you're not innovative, you can't pivot, you can't change direction, you can't do the things that we've had to do in this year.
Right.
So I think innovative, while last year had a totally different meaning, this year has a new meaning that still is in effect for what we were saying last year. Yeah, I think it's,
Yeah,
so I hear what you're saying, but goals, the goals part that you were talking about.
it's how we're going to get there more. This is, like, I see this as an overview, and then you're talking about the streamline, how we get there.
Innovative and engaging does cover it.
Going back to point.
Did you have something
Inclusiveness,
you
talk about
wanted to
friendly.
say?
Yeah, he's just up there. He's thinking, so, you know, no,
you had-
Miss Layton can go first. She
Oh,
had
I'm
her
sorry.
hand up.
I knew that you raised your hand. Amber, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest considering striking the word can, and visitors can flourish. Make it a little more dynamic by saying, and visitors flourish.
Or will flourish.
Just take it out.
Get out, and visitors flourish.
Because it's up to the residents, it's up to the businesses, it's up to the visitors to flourish. They can flourish or they can flounder.
Choice, yeah.
Well, then the can is in there means that they have the opportunity to, not that it's automatic.
By taking it out, I agree with Debbie that it makes it more, that it's on you. It's, we provided the framework, and you will flourish. So, but that's up to you. Well, I'm saying,
Opportunity is there.
yeah.
I kind of describe it, the things that are in my head, it's just a different way of saying that. I really want the city to be recognized as a leader in the region and kind of the place to be. You know, when you tell people, oh, I live in Northport, they go, wow, well, you smart to locate there, you know, that kind of thing. I want to be the envy of all the surrounding areas. I wouldn't necessarily change that.
Yeah,
Put the slide back up again, so we can see the wording.
Yeah, the way that I looked at it from last year, I mean, you can get together and craft words that will work or whatever, but I think it's actually come into play in this since last year to now. We are going out, we are engaging, we are trying to take the hard subjects out to, you know, the citizens out there to where, yeah, we can have that conversation back and forth, but at the end of the day, the citizens get the education that is so needed out there about the certain subjects, because they'll create their own vision on what we're trying to do. And then that becomes fact when it's not. It's not necessarily fact. They may say, well, this is what's going to happen. Well, they're just thinking that it might, but if you're actually in the trenches doing the work, then you're in the means of knowing what's the next step? What are we looking at? You know, Warm Mill Springs is a prime example. You've got citizens out there that are saying, this is going to happen. We haven't even gotten into the negotiations part of it on what's going to happen. So they put the cart before the horse quite a bit, and it becomes fact instead of just engulfing the information and getting educated. So by doing that, Jerome's doing a good job with the, you know, Welland Park individuals up there. And I've seen a shift in some of the individuals up there from the de-annexation on what they had in their mind to what is actually factual. And Jerome will even say, well, I can't even give you these facts because we don't know what the county would actually do. So the truth is getting out there. And I think it's come a long way in my tenure with the city and stuff to where we are now. So change is out there, and I think this is a very accurate mission statement for what we're doing now.
Yeah, obviously your pillars will fall under the strategies of what you're trying to do to accomplish. But this is kind of, as I say, the umbrella statement that captures the ultimate destination of what you want Northport to be.
And I like the word sustainability. I think most often it's interpreted as environmental. When I use it, it's financially viable.
Mhm.
So you have to look at it in a broader, yeah.
Yep, that was, exactly, I recall the conversation, yeah, it was, it meant different things to different people, and that was okay. It covered the basis. So what's your thoughts on, we've heard discussions about embracing challenges, maybe striking can, and maybe being this leader in the region. Anything that you want to change? Those are what I heard.
Like taking the
Hopefully
word
you won't.
can out, I thought that was a good suggestion. What I commented on, really innovative and engaging, really does address it in a more general sense. And that's the idea of the vision statement. It should be as simplified as possible. So I'm good with that.
Yep.
Yeah, the embracing challenges, I'm not sure how that would fit in a vision statement. To me, when I hear that, it sounds negative. That there's challenges that we have to embrace and we have to accept. And challenges,
An outsider might say,
what are those challenges that they're embracing? So it has a
And you don't want to embrace a challenge, you want to overcome a challenge.
Exactly.
Right.
And yes, we have to embrace challenges. Pre-planted community, hello, huge challenge that we are left with no choice but to embrace. But at the same time, when other people who don't know
Yeah.
that example.
right,
What are those challenges and why are they accepting? Embracing is accepting to me. And if you're accepting those challenges, why?
So,
Yeah.
Okay, so
It really
we're
is
not
a
going to
great
incorporate
vision
this one. What about striking the word can? Any
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
I would be in favor of that.
I would,
Yeah.
So Amber does not just cut tape, she also helps her words.
I would leave it in, but I'll go with the will of the board.
General consensus, strike can?
Fine.
Okay. All right, okay, so we'll do that.
to finish.
Yes.
All right, we'll do that.
I'll let you do
Anything
the
about-
honors to
anything
cut
about
can
adding-
out of the vision statement.
What we'll do is we'll put that tape over the word can. That's how we'll do it virtually. Barbara, you had raised something about leader in region,
Yeah,
the place.
leadership.
You okay with this, or?
But if you're flourishing, you're becoming the leader.
Yeah, I wouldn't add it to the mission statement.
doesn't really fit. Maybe we can get it the next level down.
The mission or or one of the pillars.
Yeah.
If you hit on those four, innovative, friendly, engaging, and sustainable, you are a leader.
You are the
Mhm.
leader. And if your residents, businesses, and visitors flourish,
I want to be recognized. Not enough to be the leader.
Asking for money,
Is that a
right?
little bit of, Mayor, is that a little bit of an ego? Just a little bit.
Oh, as opposed to a vision. maybe.
That's what I'm saying, maybe in the next level down.
Gonna have a couple bites at the apple here. We'll see. Okay, so we're gonna strike the word can. Other than that, everybody's good with where we're at? Okay. Talk about the mission statement. Now, this is something that largely is, number one, is what you want to be. It starts to get as to how you're going to get there in the process. And so this is the tactical part of the direction.
Maybe this is where the leadership.
Could be. To provide exceptional service to our entire community with a continuous enrichment of quality of life through transparency, engagement, and respect. It'll work for you
I
or
find
not?
that limiting. So what do I mean by that?
What do you want to do, cut service and put in leadership?
Oh, I think providing exceptional service is a key, essential part of what we do.
Mhm.
How would we weave? Yeah.
Respect, though, to me, I would much rather have the respect of my adjacent areas, then I don't know.
To be looked, well, respect could be one way of saying that we are looked to for leadership in given areas.
For me, it's much more important.
What were you saying you wanted to put in there? Did you say you wanted something in there?
That Northport would be recognized as a leader in the region.
But is that,
That would come with a territory, right? If we do the vision and this is our mission, and if we're successful through transparency, engagement, and respect,
Yeah.
that would.
You can extrapolate it from that.
And you can add on and say, in engagement and respecting, allowing us to be the leading municipality in the region. That would fit what she needed. And then a gold star on her badge and everything else that comes with it.
just.
I don't like words like allowing, you know, they're like,
Right.
sir.
Right.
But you're a math teacher, not English, so.
It speaks to recognition, and is that really our mission? Or is it to provide, I mean, it's all about those people we serve and the quality of life.
But it is service, so
Yeah.
that's what they come here for. They
But
want to
I'm
be,
speaking to the recognition, and like, that's more of a goal. Yeah, we want to be respected as the best, or that it's like how others view us. I don't know if that's part of a mission statement.
Well, but again, part of my motivation for that is for such a long period of time, Northport was sort of the backwater of county and all of that. And I think we have turned a corner. You know, I really think we've turned a corner. And I'm starting to hear feedback that, wow, you know, Northport is really starting to do things and exciting things are happening there. People want to be part of that.
But is that not a goal of the mission? Once we provide, as we provide the exceptional service and the enrichment of quality of life through those three, transparency, engagement, and respect. No,
I think it's all spot on.
but it's more of a goal. Again, it's a byproduct of that mission to say we're being recognized.
Well, take the recognized out of it and to provide leadership. And if other municipalities see us as providing leadership, that's sort of the recognition. I want us to be
Leadership and
leaders.
Service and leadership. I like the word leadership.
I do too.
Yeah, but I don't really want to get into a pissing contest with neighboring communities that we got to work with. You know, because once you get into that egotistical status and we need something from somebody and they say, well, why don't you do it on your own? Because but to get that recognition from the people that are moving here, that are living here, that's enough of a recognition for me, because they are coming here, they're gravitating here because they're hearing that Northport is a great place to go. Why have to announce it?
You're right. I agree.
I would buy
If you
that.
have to say, I'm the leader, then you're not much of a leader, I'm sorry. It should, we should be able to see that, and we're gonna see that with this exceptional service and what we engage people, that is going. Otherwise, we fall back into that, oh, woe is.
I thought you disconnected that from recognition and the idea of we offer service, but part maybe of our mission, correct me if I'm wrong, is providing leadership where maybe it wasn't as good in the past as it could have been. I mean, we provide service, but I think in the 6 years I've lived here, I've seen an incredible transformation in leadership. So maybe you meant it that way. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I didn't mean it in connection with the recognition part. That I didn't see.
Right.
But leadership is part of perhaps our mission as a commission. I thought that's
As
where
a
you were
commission, yes, but this is about the city.
This is a city mission statement. It's
For
not.
all the people who are living here, what,
Remember, your vision statement is where you want to go, your mission statement is how you're going to get there.
for the people here.
Gotta
And
give the newbie some slack. I mean, he's learning.
think.
I mean, in commercial spaces, we would call it industry-leading service levels, you know, sort of that kind of thing.
It's pretty hard to find anything wrong with that.
No, nothing's wrong with it.
And it's things that we've done. Transparency has really come out there and engagement, as you were saying before, we've never really had that before.
Biggest drawing, I mean, it's just like what makes us so special compared to everybody else in the area. We're the best at that. We are, in my opinion.
And I take great pride, you know, when I drive down Tamiami, not that there's anything wrong with Charlotte County, but you look at their level of recovery from Ian and our level
Yeah,
of
they're
recovery.
complaining.
You see a
They were
difference.
complaining, I read
You
it all
see
the
a real
time.
difference,
Yeah.
and it's that exceptional
Mhm.
service.
Sometimes tooting your own horn is counterproductive.
Yes,
Yes.
No, I agree.
People,
you have to have that substance already.
Right.
People will see it.
people see it. You don't have to throw it in their face and say, well, because of this is why we're this way. It's too grandiose and it's self-serving as opposed to being.
Actions speak louder than words. Yeah.
Well, I understand what you're.
too. I want it all. I want it now.
Something like that.
City clerk, can we all,
Well, I'm thinking the Morgan & Morgan commercial. She wants more, right? More, right?
can we order her a tiara or something?
So.
I've been voted down on the leadership.
Oh, all right. I was going to throw it out there
I
just
yield.
as I've heard the conversation.
I yield.
All right, I won't throw it if you don't want me to throw it then.
And I do believe it was unanimous, but like,
Okay.
My private little mission.
We're not gonna pursue leadership in the mission statement. We're good?
It could also come back and bite you in the hiney.
You know what they say, you know, if you're
I would
If
never
you're-
acknowledge defeat, never, ever.
if you're a hammer or a nail, everything's a nail, right? Okay. As I said, this is one you have to own, so you got to make sure you're comfortable with it. I don't want to, the dialogue is important, but at the end of the day, you got to feel it reflects how you're going to get to the vision of the organization. A lot of brain cells were killed last year, I know that, but I'm not trying to say it has to be the same, you know. So.
A little bit competitive. Charming.
Competition is awesome.
Sorry,
Let's
it's all
put,
part of
let's
the
put the
dialogue.
energy in action as opposed to putting it on paper.
Bill, this is one I'm going to add. I get to single you out because you weren't part of the discussion last year. You okay with it?
I think it's
You're good?
I really do. I mean, I usually always have some, I can't think of what to add. You know, nothing needs to get changed from that or taken out, but I can't even think of something to add to it. It just has, it right on the head. I love it.
All right.
All right. Sounds like a
We'll be
plan.
done with our strategic planning by lunch tomorrow.
All right. So we're going to not do that. Okay.
How long on mission and vision statement? Holy cow.
So
Last year?
Well, you did a lot of heavy lifting last year.
the next section I wanted to review was your organizational values. I'm going to give you, there are your values, but I want to come back to this in a second here, just so you can get a chance to see accountability, integrity, customer service, teamwork, empowered employees, cultural diversity, and innovation. In addition to coming up and we made statements and adjustments to this, we added this as a preamble because there was some concern about what the values meant. So this, after some conversation with the commission, this goes on top of your organizational values. So everybody understands their role. So they're guiding principles, including you as a commission, your staff, and how you're going to conduct business. That goes from the developer that wants to do X, Y, and Z to the resident that opposes the developer that wants to do X, Y, and Z. How you engage your citizens, how you conduct your business, your values as an organization. And what I will tell you is this is important. Why we do this, although you expect this out of your staff to do these things, I will tell you that your staff is also looking at you as leaders of this organization. Are you living the organizational values as the board of directors of the city of Northport as well? So this is why it's important for you to set that tone, because it's not just for all the people that are working for you, it's you as a group as well. So let's unpack these. Start off with accountability.
I think it sounds good.
Thoughts? We'll work our way down.
Oh, we're only
We'll
on-
get there.
I'm
We'll get
sorry,
there.
I thought
Okay,
we were reading all of
all
them.
right, yeah, just accountability?
Accountability, sorry.
Anything, yeah.
I
anything-
jumped ahead.
That's all right, not a problem, we'll get there. All this stuff's hard. Yeah. A lot of brain thinking here.
For accountability, there's too many ands, you need two different sentences there. First one is the ethical standards. And then how do we get to those ethical standards is accepting ownership for our conduct and obligations.
Well, you can go, we are
Like the first
dedicated, and then we accept, two separate sentences.
I'm sorry, make sure I understand that, Debbie, what was that again?
We are dedicated to the highest ethical standards, period. We accept ownership for our conduct and obligations.
Period.
Period, and then,
Just two
then,
sentences.
I'm sorry, then you say we accept?
Yeah,
So,
we
strike and, okay.
This way it's not like a run-on sentence. You okay with that, Phil?
Thanks for asking, Pete.
What's your thoughts on that?
Sounds good to me.
I'm good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll do a format question, only other question, because all your other ones are one sentence. Now you may change them. Do you want it, is it okay to have two sentences in one versus all the others being statements of a single sentence? I'm not judging that,
You can
I'm just
always
asking
go with
that.
a semicolon.
Mhm.
We had a lot of semicolon conversations last year. You're right, Mara. I do recall that.
Was the goal only to have one sentence?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just for symmetry purposes, all of them are one sentence. I'm the Swiss on this one. It really doesn't matter to me. I just raised the question only from somebody that sees these, and you may not note that. So, yes.
Well, did we or did we not just approve two sentences?
I'm not debating it. I just want you to be,
I
yeah,
think it's
as long as you're okay with it. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll strike and replace period and then go with we. Okay? All right. Integrity. Maintain the public's trust, honest, transparent, respectful, and equitable behavior.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, any changes, Phil?
Thanks again for asking.
I mean, we were all here last year. You're the new guy. We're here to,
We're giving you fingerprint.
Opportunities.
I
giving
mean, I was
Dirty
saying on the
racer
rubber
roll.
stamp this, but I really can't see any way we could change that one. That's like spot on.
Well, we did a good job last
You
year.
did do a good job.
We spent, yes,
A lot of
really
time.
long time.
This was a couple-day process to get to this. Yeah, this was not a,
The slam dunk.
I'm hearing integrity's okay?
It looks
Mhm.
great.
Okay, next one, customer service.
It is. It's hard to read. It's really hard to
Lead and
read.
strive to make a positive difference, powerful, right up through, you know, build connections with our residents, businesses, and internal staff. I mean, is it, well, no, customer service.
Well, that goes back to
Positive difference.
the people. That's what you're trying to do.
You could do a period after staff and sort of treat it like we did accountability.
Oh,
We
strive.
strive to make a positive difference. That's sort of a little different.
Yeah, that's better. I like that. Because there's a lot of ands in there, and purpose, and internal. Right, well, we,
Track of where you're at.
You've heard about the committee discussion of how Camels got designed. That's partly how some of this stuff goes about, a lot of meshing of thoughts.
Was it the mission statement that talked about residents, businesses, and visitors?
Yes.
So
Well, here, let's go back here. I'll make sure you get the. No, there's a vision statement.
Okay, so it was the vision statement. So now go back to the
Yep.
value thing real quick. The reason why I'm asking that is because here we're talking about residents, businesses, and internal staff. We're trying to build connections with our visitors too, because we want them to come back. Possibly to build a home here, buy a home here, visit here, spend their money here. And I think we need, because if eventually, in the coming years, we are going to have a lot of visitors saying, I'm going to Northport, I want to go check out, fill in the blank.
And they spend money.
Exactly. So we need to make sure, in my opinion, that the customer service isn't just for residents and businesses and internal staff, but we include our visitors. And isn't staff always internal?
I was just gonna say that. I would add visitor and take internal out.
Okay. Yeah, the
well,
thought
I'm sure
was
there's
that-
a few individuals out there that think they're external staff.
Why are we?
I would scratch that myself.
Why are we?
This is supposed to be what staff does
Right. Why are
as a
we
city
including-
staff.
Help me remember, why did we include internal staff
I
the
can add to
last
that.
time?
So the issue is your staff, there are people on your staff that are externally focused. They're the police officers, the firefighters providing services to the people in the street. There are support staff, HR, finance, procurement, that if they don't work well and do customer service to internal, it affects the ability of your people that are outward facing, your fleet operations.
That
if
takes
you're-
way too much explanation, and I
So
thought,
that's how we got to staff,
Yeah.
because you have customers internal to the organization, and if they don't do a good job, your folks doing external services can't deliver on the services. So that was the conversation that got to internal staff.
Customer service is customer service, and it should be fair for the staff as it is the residents.
As I said,
I mean, bottom line, I mean, if you're giving customer service, you should be giving the same amount to staff, no matter how many times they've come to your office seeking things. It should be done proper, and,
Why,
yeah, I would take it out.
why did you feel the need to identify residents, businesses, and internal staff at all, as opposed to making general customer service statement in general, which is no matter who we interact with, we're going to
By building
provide
connections.
that compassion and professionalism, striving to make a positive difference.
By building connections and making a positive business.
Well, we tried to define the statement.
Yeah, there were some discussions about, as I recall, there were some points about, what do we call them? If we call them residents, that doesn't capture everything, because there's
Right.
people that live here, that work here, that don't
was
live here.
left hanging.
If we call them stakeholders, there was some conversation about stakeholders being part of it.
Why identify them at all, since the service, the organizational values focused on the customer service, regardless of who. Was there a need?
How about with those we serve, or something like that,
Those we
is what I
serve,
think what I'm hearing you say.
How about we just say we provide outstanding customer relations through compassion, professionalism, and purpose, period. We strive to make a positive difference.
Purpose, comma, striving to make a positive difference. You could put it, you could make it.
That way, just taking out the word from by all the way
Yeah.
to the
I was thinking,
and
yeah,
in
'cause
front
I
of
didn't know if
strive.
there was a reason why you wanted to identify who, because it's really all.
Well, I think some of it has to do with, we have had the reputation in the past of not being business friendly. And I think that was part of this conversation, that it wasn't just always about residents. When businesses come in here and most of those people downstairs, they're here to get permits, they're contractors, I noticed, so they are still, handled the same way as a resident coming in, to find out something. They're given that same respect.
Customer service is still customer service, period.
Just focusing on, I think that's what we were talking about, to be
Right,
sure.
and I'm sure that's what we were, but I think, I don't see the need. I see where we cut the sentence down like they had just suggested, because that's what I was looking at.
I'm big on short, impactful.
Right. So you would cut out by building connections with our residents, businesses, and internal staffs, and that would be gone.
The next sentence would be by striving to make a positive difference.
And, well, we could do and purpose
And purpose.
by striving to make a positive difference, and you still only have the one sentence.
Or-
It's not that long, or you could do
And
two
purpose
sentences.
And purpose by building connections, comma, striving to make a positive difference. If you want to include, is that purpose by building connections? Is that something we want to keep?
Period. By building connections, period. We
Mhm.
strive. We are sort of getting symmetry in the structure of
Okay.
how we're making the statements. I don't know, I think the longer ones, I prefer the two shorter.
Alice, you're a teacher.
By building connections, is that what you said? You want to keep that in?
Period.
Two sentences?
Yeah.
It's a little more forceful when you do that, and then you really are making two statements. And I like the building connections, because I think that's how we've come a
Mhm.
long way from what things used to be, that we are constantly reaching out and looking for ways to improve things. And those are connections that are made with people coming in here.
My comment, it was just to like residents, businesses, and staff didn't seem comprehensive enough in how many different things. can
Right.
be listed. You wanna
Yeah,
be
you'd have
extra.
15
Yeah,
by
you don't want to
the
be
time
extra.
we're
And they're all customers.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
you're right.
So I'm hearing you say, stop after, a period after building connections.
Connections.
Yeah.
All right, so period after building connections.
It's a relationship.
Connections. Yeah, me too.
Okay. And then,
That implies more that you get to know people. Like, oh, that's what I'm looking at it as. too
For me,
sometimes.
connections are more transactional, relationships are
Yeah.
more
Yeah, but when
long-term
they come in
But they are
several times.
Mhm.
It is a little more, maybe more, I mean, you're not really, not
It is
that building relationships not a good thing, but it is transactional.
We don't build relationships with everything we do.
Right. And then after,
so after the period after connections.
Yes,
And the next sentence is, we strive to make a positive
Yeah.
difference.
yes. Good with that, Phil?
I'll tell you, Pete. I'm making me feel so included, I can't tell you.
Good customer service.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the whole way that the entrance has changed. When people
Right.
come in that little
The
kiosk
customer
there.
service
And then they go and they
area.
sit in a couch and they're waiting. Before it was like people were just kind of milling around.
Around
They had a
and-
line going into the building. Do you remember that? There was a line going in there and numbers and or something, and people were like confused all the time.
I'm going to throw this out there, having the table there with the security guard is getting bothered more than the staff inside there.
I think they're asking the DMV questions, because I sat there waiting for my lunch yesterday and people, because he was outside, and they're asking me, where's the DMV? Do we need an appointment? Oh, all this, like, Yeah, that's why, he's right
They
there.
see him first. He's a man
Yes.
in uniform, so they're going to him first as opposed to going to staff first. I've noticed that each time I've come in and out of here.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Okay.
Right along.
So what I think I hear, we provide outstanding customer relations through compassion, professionalism, and purpose by building connections, period. We strive to make a positive difference.
That's good.
And I'll clean these up and put them on, so you can see them again tomorrow morning before we dig into it, to make sure you see
You
the
have
language.
homework tonight.
You're good. Yeah, it's always homework after these sessions, so. Okay, does that work for customer service?
Yes.
Bill and John? Okay, teamwork.
Nice and brief and to the point.
Yeah. Good words, collaboratively, efficient, effective. There you go.
Yep, that one's good. Next.
We're good? You're not gonna ask Phil?
Thank you, Pete.
Nah, he said it was good.
I was just starting to feel the vibe here, and all of a sudden you threw me a curve there. Everybody good with teamwork? All right, good. All right, empowered employees. Debbie, I think you're working on this one, so I know you got some thoughts. Go ahead, go at it here.
Yeah, I'll just listen at this point.
I don't like the word authority so much. Offers employees the authority, how about
The opportunity.
the opportunity, the ability to act through supportive leadership, mutual respect.
The reason that word restriction authority was to make them feel more empowered to be able to make decisions.
Oh.
I think that's why that word.
Yeah, but I think, what word did you use, Alice? The opportunity?
Opportunity.
It's still, to me, is the same thing, because they're gonna act through supportive leadership. That means they can go to their leader and be able to voice their opinions, but the authority means it's almost mandated for them to be able to do so.
What about we embrace an inclusive work environment, comma, offering employees the opportunity to act with supportive leadership, blah, blah.
Yeah. Which offers is like you're trying to explain or defend your position, whereas taking that out. Yeah. So what did you say?
We embrace an inclusive
Work environment, comma,
Comma.
offering.
Offering.
Employees the opportunity.
What's ownership? So if they have the opportunity, then they have no ownership. You understand what? Trust, ownership, and open communication. Ownership.
I get I get what that means.
Yeah, because you mentioned this before, they should feel empowered. And to do that, you have to take ownership of something, to empower yourself to do
I think
something.
the goal was you just didn't want to be pushing it up. You want to try to
Right.
resolve, the conversations were something, resolving it at the lowest level you can, which means I've got ownership of the problem to solve.
I like the word.
Okay.
Yeah, through empowerment.
Well, that's how you're
Or the power
empowering,
to act, if you didn't want to use the actual empowerment.
but that's how you're empowering them, is through those.
The opportunity to act through.
How about empowering?
Employees to act through.
Instead of opportunity, I like that better. Empowering employees to act through supportive leadership, mutual respect, trust, and open communication.
Offering employees the empowerment.
No, taking out offering. We embrace an inclusive work environment, empowering employees to supportive leadership. Does that make sense?
Mutual respect, trust, and open communication.
What was that, Allison?
I'd buy that.
Where was-
Embrace an inclusive work environment.
Empowering employees to act.
Right.
The one thing that I'm stuck on is the through part, to act through. It would act with sounds better, because you're gonna be acting with supportive leadership, mutual respect, you're gonna be acting with trust, with the ownership and with the
That's a really
communication.
very good point.
Thanks, Phil. We should have done it last year, we wouldn't be talking about it this year, huh? Sorry.
You know, it's
Glad
hard
you're here.
to be totally perfect.
I'm glad you're here, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You good with that?
Excellent.
Okay.
So let me capture that again now. So, we embrace an inclusive work environment,
Empowering
empowering
employees
To act
to act with.
to act
With.
with
leadership.
Mutual respect.
Right.
supportive
Trust.
center, okay.
And open communication.
Take out ownership at that point?
I
Yeah,
like
'cause we're-
ownership.
But we already said empowering.
I
And when you
know.
empower, you're taking ownership.
Well, once you empower somebody, they gotta own it too, in my opinion. I made that decision, I own it. You empowered me to make that decision, but I made it, and if that was a mistake, I own it.
You want to leave the word ownership in it? Okay.
That's just me, see what everybody else wants. Phil?
I'm with you.
Okay, just checking. Phil's good with it, sir.
So ownership stays?
Yeah. No, because if you're empowering the employee to work with the supportive leadership, there's certain things an employee will have 100% ability to make that decision on. But there are other times where they're going to have to work with the supportive leadership. So that ownership is no longer theirs that they had been empowered with. It's now a team effort based on respect and trust and communication.
Well, no, what I got too is, it's a different team too. What if that team, you have supportive leadership, let's say you have 5 members, but you have the ultimate leader that makes that decision. There's still ownership involved. He took all of this group here and said, okay, this is what we want to do. I'm picking that, and that's the way it stands. It's still a supportive leadership role. So ownership on what the decision made, I still feel needs to be up in there. No flip-flopping, Phil.
Okay.
Say that 10 times.
I'm in the minority, so.
Well, what's everybody else thinks? Mayor?
I like it. I like ownership in there
You made
Because-
a strong case.
because it really, people aren't going to pass the buck.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, they own their own stuff. I like it.
Okay.
So stays in?
Yeah.
Consensus?
Yep.
Trust, ownership, et cetera, okay. Okay. Cultural diversity.
You're up, Phil.
Religious isn't there. Could it be?
I think we talked about that last time, but separation of church and state,
Yeah.
I think we did discuss that.
Has to include absence of, and by putting it in there, I think that's what we talked about.
Well, but diversity is the acceptance of people's differences, and religion is certainly one of those.
Is, like I did with one of the others, do we need to highlight ethnic, cultural, gendered, or say differences and life experience?
Well, ethnic, cultured, and gendered are all 3 separate categories, in my opinion.
But is not differences all encompassing enough? Makes it more general statement. We need to identify this.
But it's.
Then we start thinking of things like religious and other areas. How,
Well, we talked last year about how religion shouldn't be in there.
I think differences is lacking. I think this is more pinpointing.
And
what do we, that's my question really, do you want to pinpoint it? Do we want to pinpoint it, or do we want to say we embrace our community's differences and life experiences to encourage engagement?
sounds too vanilla. I'm sorry. I think we were pretty strong when we talked about this last year to have.
This country is suffering from a resurgence of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
We need to call it out.
Yeah, well, we've got all sorts of different ethnic backgrounds within our community. I mean, I think no, it's not religion. I'm talking about this is where they came from and their cultures is how they live their lives. But the ethnicity in here is, I think we had like over 100 different type of ethnic backgrounds within our little community itself.
Talk about political differences.
Well, that's given.
One that's left out conspicuously in that statement. And it is certainly probably one that is the biggest bone of contention or.
But again, we're talking about the cities, and I don't think political made it on the earmark of watching last time. I still don't agree with it. I mean, political is political, you know. Yeah,
We're really focused on cultural.
yeah,
And this is cultural.
Yeah.
people's lifestyles. I mean, you could choose to be a politician or not.
But religion can be cultural because certain religions have cultural differences
Yes.
that are recognized only in that religion, not other.
So the religion still falls under cultural.
I wouldn't put it there, but I don't feel strongly enough to argue it. I just think we're missing a dimension by not calling it out.
Well, you want religion in there?
I would prefer it, yeah. Only because of, we're.
Well, yeah, and again, it comes back to the separation because it's accepting
So
on a city level.
I'll throw devil's advocate. Once again, I'm the Swiss. This is your statement, not mine. If you bring in religion, then you probably have to bring in those that are non-believers as well.
Well, that's what I was saying,
Yeah, so
the
you've got-
absence of religion.
And maybe if you do that, and ultimately that's your call, ultimately then is it you strike the cultural and just call it diversity. Because right now you're kind of dealing with cultural, which to Debbie's point, it can, and Pete's point, it can have a component of religious based on, but it doesn't necessarily require it that way. It's
Brought up an interesting point because when I read that, I really missed the word cultural.
Right.
I went to diversity. Why is that organizational value a category cultural diversity rather than just not diversity? Yeah.
What if we embrace our community's ethnic, cultural, gendered beliefs and life experiences? Just add the word beliefs, whether you believe or not.
But I believe Jews should be rounded up and put in concentration camps. That's a belief.
Cultural is
It's going to be in the headlines tomorrow if you don't clarify that
Yeah.
statement.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
right.
Well,
That's a belief.
It still falls on religious, right?
Not my belief, but it is a belief of some people.
But it falls under the First and Second Amendment as well. So,
We're talking about diversities that are not dictated by religion. Like this is your cultural identity, your gender identity, your say that word because I can't say that word.
ethnicity,
Still hung up on why you added the word cultural. Why not just diversity?
So that's going to what
The
I was
headline.
going to say.
As a headline, then you can say we embrace our community's differences and life experiences, and you cut all that else out. But because you're talking to the issue of diversity rather than just cultural.
You just want diversity, And cultural is already mentioned in there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm suggesting it only because I was curious. I didn't know what the thought process was behind making it cultural diversity, unless it just became a catchphrase and you put it in because it's more broad. Why let cultural qualify it or restrict it? It's diversity. And then you can more generalize the statement itself, so you don't have to get into the weeds on ethnic, cultural, religious, gendered, and so
Remember,
Well,
I remember the discussion on the religion. I do not
Very-
remember the concept of how we landed on cultural as part of the title. To fill.
Well, yeah, cultural diversity, if you got cultural in there, it's like,
We're trying-
yeah.
You have to
take
remember,
cultural out, but Also, I have a problem with gendered as well. I mean, people are people and they can be whatever the hell they want to be. I mean, why do you have to specify?
on. Well, that's why I say if you just head the category diversity, and then we embrace our community's differences and life experiences to encourage engagement, opportunity, equality, partnerships, and inclusiveness.
Maybe you're trying to
Yeah.
get.
If I can,
Maybe you're trying to get.
sorry.
I was just gonna say that last year when we were doing this, there was a lot going on in the world. It was the start of the Russian and Ukrainian invasion and our city having such culturally diverse
Right.
areas. We wanted to make sure that we embraced them and captured it in our.
that was reflected in this thing,
And
yeah.
that's, I think, why it was really, really focused in and honed in. And I remember last year, I even said, I don't agree with having everything spelled out because we are invariably leaving out people by spelling out certain things. So I'm with the new guy on this one.
City Attorney, do you have a
Hang on while I
suggestion?
rethink this. No, thank you.
That's right, I
Thank
should
you.
just shut up and let y'all just do it. Because when did I open
I'm
my mouth?
teasing you. Thank you.
Yes, my only thought is, I know this bullet point relates to the community as opposed to the workplace, as the prior bullet point does. But as an employer, there are, several protected classes that, under federal and state law, we cannot discriminate against. And then we also have local laws that kind of expand those categories as well. So, I would suggest that you may want to consider either including everything or doing something more general,
Okay.
rather than possibly unintentionally creating the impression that some of the categories are more highly prioritized.
Well, what if we embrace our community's diversities and life experiences to encourage engagement, opportunity, equality, partnerships, and inclusiveness. So if you take out ethnic, cultural, and gendered and just put diversities because everybody's different, like Phil said, the new guy.
I hear what you're saying, but I liked how Phil worded it, if he can remember.
Well, I didn't know how he worded it. I was just trying to put a
Yeah,
sentence
we
together.
embrace our community's differences and life experiences to encourage engagement, rather than just.
Geez, I just did the same thing. It was diversities
I know.
instead of differences.
Oh, different. I like differences instead of diversities.
That was saying,
Okay.
yeah.
But I honestly think you can just end it there without going into the opportunities, equalities, partnerships, and inclusiveness. It's like you're just repeated what you just said.
I agree.
We embrace our community's differences and life experiences, you want to keep that in there?
Period.
Period. That's it?
Scratch everything else.
Well,
What the new guy said.
no, I didn't, I read it right through the end. That suggested, why do you want to abbreviate it? What hangs you up about encourage, engagement, opportunity?
Equality.
Are we missing stuff or?
Well, if you're embracing the community's differences and life experiences, you're embracing it. You want this to happen. You want all of this. So why do we have to then spell out how we're going to do it?
Okay, I have a, what do you call that? One of those things in the middle. No, we embrace,
Semicolon?
no.
I'm the queen of semicolons.
Differences.
Differences and life experiences to encourage engagement, period.
This is about our organizational value.
You can
Right.
even add within the community at the end if you wanted to.
To encourage, Pete, where'd you land again? After encourage?
Encourage engagement or,
What about to encourage inclusiveness, period?
that's fine.
Guys, thought this through when it comes to adding engagement, opportunity, equality, partnerships, and inclusiveness. That has power, those words, and embracing our community's differences and life experiences to encourage those things. Think about why you included them, because I like them, but I think it's separate
Well, then
from
maybe we just
the
need to
first
take the
part.
word engagement out, to encourage opportunity, to encourage
Yeah.
equality, to encourage partnerships, and to encourage.
But engagement is a part of embrace and engage.
Yeah.
Well, to engage means you go down to another person's thingy, a bazaar or whatever the case may be,
Yeah, we're
that you may not normally go to.
embracing our community's differences to encourage engagement of people. It is a slight redundancy, but engagement is important. By embracing your differences, you're also encouraging engagement. And that's important because very often differences keep people apart. So
Well,
engagement, opportunity, equality, partnership, inclusive. I like them all, but that's just my opinion.
Let me interject here in the process. I don't know if anybody read the book For the Love of Cities by Peter Nakayama? There's a variety of themes. One of the biggest themes are, when you think about what makes a family unit, it's the fact that you celebrate things and have shared experiences as a family. The holidays, the birthdays, the funeral, whatever that looks like to you. And so part of his concept in his book is that how do cities come together to have that, I'll say, engagement, so they have shared experiences and they can feel part of something bigger than just themselves. So that I throw that out there, that if that helps you understand
Seriously?
kind of where I think you're trying to get a big tent, that everybody's welcome to come in so that you can have shared experiences, whether that helps you decide whether that's engagement or something else. But that's the concept of what makes cities great, is that people feel part of something bigger than their own familiar unit, if you will. So.
What do we think?
We embrace our community's differences, period. End of sentences.
And life experiences.
I was just throwing that out there, and life experiences. That would be enough for me.
I mean, if we're worried about whether engagement is a good or a bad, we could always say we embrace our community's differences and life experiences to encourage positive engagement, opportunity, equality, partnerships, and inclusiveness. Playing to my propensity to
Add words.
Well, I'm reading what this falls under. It's how we will conduct business in the day-to-day operations of our city. And I took that to mean not just within City Hall, but when people come
Dealings
into.
with-
That's what we
Your-
expect our subcontractors and consultants to do.
Programs or services, your
Right.
facilities,
We-
all that.
We
is what you're
want
getting at.
them to embrace the cultural difference, or not cultural, the differences that the community brings to us. We don't need, I'm sorry, I'm kind of sticking to it. We don't need to put in all those other words.
I wasn't reading this as just like business, but when anybody comes in,
Right.
like somebody wants a special event permit, that we're not gonna, we don't
Everybody
want
that
this
comes
here in
in.
Northport, get out of here.
Right,
But that
right.
we're going to embrace those differences.
And it doesn't have to just be those differences, of equality and partnerships and
Well, we embrace our community's differences and life experiences to encourage engagement and interaction. And leave it. Adding interaction a problem. Word.
I like inclusiveness
I do too.
better.
I like that word.
I don't like engagement.
Okay. there.
That's a strong word, because
Yeah.
that means you're accepting.
Right.
And
So we embrace our community's differences and life experiences to encourage inclusiveness.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
Category title would just say diversity.
And just say diversity, not cultural diversity.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think that's
rad.
good, because that's
So-
really going in
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is we embrace our community's
differences.
differences and
And
life
life
experiences
experiences.
to encourage
Encourage
inclusiveness.
Inclusiveness.
Yes.
Period.
Period.
What I hear?
Yeah.
Less is more.
And there was a discussion about, do we leave it cultural diversity or just call it diversity?
Diversity.
How about we embrace our community's differences and life experiences by encouraging inclusiveness?
Oh,
Instead of
Instead of
two.
two, I agree with that.
By,
Two's
how
not
are
a
we
good
going
word.
to do this? We're going to do this by encouraging inclusiveness.
Yeah,
that's good.
everyone likes that.
That's the second time you've wrapped it up.
Keep trying.
Yes, we took out the word cultural in front of diversity. Yeah.
And then we're going to strike
That we
culture.
did a long time ago.
Okay?
Okay.
All right? You can see, words matter.
Innovation.
Words
Words
matter.
absolutely matter.
Absolutely matter. Okay.
Absolutely matter.
We encourage an environment. We create an environment that stimulates.
Yeah, that was pretty silent after that one, but go ahead.
Sometimes these more profound concepts, it takes a little while
Yeah,
for them
it's
to
gotta
sink in.
Or hit me like a rock, one of the two.
He's recovering.
Okay, so innovation.
How about we expect an environment that stimulates new and innovative approaches?
That is a little,
Like boom, boom, boom.
yeah,
But what did
create, you
say?
have a responsibility.
Is that,
It's not expected,
like a
your
flu-
problem, Alice.
that's like a fluid word to
Right,
create,
to
to
create.
allowing things to.
Nice thing
happen.
about embrace, it's a huggy word. You know, it feels better to me than create. Create seems more structural.
Is that what you're saying? We embrace an environment? Is that what you're
We
saying?
embrace. The way it's written, we embrace, because it's more huggy, it's more familiar.
We're talking about innovation now.
Oh, I didn't know we jumped in.
Yeah,
on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wrapped.
Well, all right.
That was so
Where were
loud.
you when I needed you?
That was,
So Phil, I don't know during the Marshmallow Challenge that he'd hug you, but I know there were some supporting concepts there. It's like,
Where were you when I needed
that was so last year.
Can I write that off to my newness?
Yes.
Okay. Innovation.
You have to create an environment for innovation, you really do.
Right.
It doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen.
It kind of goes with innovation, though.
Yeah.
When you're innovative, you're creating, you have to have that
Foster?
atmosphere.
I like establish.
Feels too like.
It's actually like a professional word rather than a Crayola word.
Innovation should be in a, more free,
I didn't say nothing
free
about it.
What we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Foster.
Foster, that's a good word,
It's a good word.
yeah.
We foster an environment. I don't,
Sure, the new
okay.
guy gets all the okey dokies this year, I see it.
That wasn't.
I have no private ownership. This is your
That's right.
stuff, not mine. I'm just
I
trying to
just
help
heard
you
him.
work through it.
Oh, you Googled it?
Oh, okay,
No, I
now I
was-
know your
I
secret.
was listening for it.
Find some synonyms for that, okay? And I don't understand the word efficiencies. I was reading that. New and innovative approaches to achieve efficiencies and exceptional outcomes. I get that, but
I think
efficiencies.
the concept is that if you're doing the same thing over and over and over, you're probably missing opportunities. There are groups that have things called rapid process improvements, where you put team members together to drive down your cost, drive down the time, eliminate steps, things. So
Make
that was
things
the
more
efficiencies
efficient. Make
of
things
being
more
innovative to
efficient.
think of doing it differently.
That sounds awkward.
Or
I-
attain, or well, yeah.
Efficiencies? Because
Well,
you're,
we can have more than one.
Yeah,
you're talking about,
Efficient and exceptional outcomes.
oh, it should be efficient.
It should be efficient.
Oh,
Stimulates new and innovative approaches to achieve efficient and exceptional.
Okay.
outcomes.
Because it would be efficient outcome.
Well, I don't see it, I don't read it that way.
okay.
Efficient outcomes, exceptional outcomes make sense. Efficiencies
it's just
make
okay.
sense for me. It's looking for ways to lower the cost of delivering exceptional service.
But these are new approaches.
Yeah, this
to
is innovative.
create. So you're
Yeah.
creating, your end result is new efficiency. But to get there, you have to create and achieve efficient outcomes.
Well, let's turn it over to the new guy, see what he says. What do you say, Phil?
I'm kind of like, let's see. We foster an environment. We foster an environment that stimulates innovative and creative approaches to achieve efficiencies and exceptional outcomes.
How about efficient processing and exceptional outcomes?
Efficient processes.
Then the efficient, that works. Efficient
Mhm.
processes.
Okay.
And
All right, I'm
exceptional.
seeing a little bit of redundancy here
Exceptional
too.
results, exceptional results, not outcomes. You want results.
Well, we're under innovation. The one thing that I'm looking at is we encourage an environment that stimulates new and innovative approaches.
Right.
Why do we need new and innovative? Why don't we take out new approaches?
New and innovative are to me.
It's the same thing.
They're the same thing.
And it's under innovation, so that stimulates new approaches to achieve whatever.
Efficient processes and exceptional
Outcomes.
outcomes.
Efficient processes.
and exceptional
Yes.
outcomes,
I like
whatever.
results better than outcomes.
Okay,
Because you're.
I could agree with,
Processes and results. Outcomes is the same as results.
Yeah.
I could do results.
You want new approaches, or would you like cutting edge approaches?
That way then
That's a
we're not,
very innovative word.
Yeah.
that way we're not repeating the word innovative or innovation.
Right. Because we found that out in the cultural ones. We learned from that to cut out the culture.
We foster an environment that stimulates cutting-edge approaches to achieve efficient processes and exceptional results.
Winner, what do you say? What do you say, Phil?
Yeah, I
Nice
mean,
job.
Cutting edge is good.
Take your credit.
All right, let me,
It's
before you
innovative
lose it,
itself.
let me get it one more time. So we
To
foster an environment that
That stimulates cutting-edge
Edge approaches.
to achieve efficient processes and exceptional results.
approaches that, after approaches that, what?
Achieve,
To achieve.
to achieve
Approaches to achieve, okay. To achieve.
efficient processes.
And exceptional
Results.
results.
Yep.
All right, now I got a question. Why do we need processes? To achieve efficient and exceptional results.
Result, efficient and a result is just not a good adjective for that word.
Efficient processes and exceptional results.
I'll go with it. We'll change it next year with the next new guy. Not Phil.
Well, no, that'll be one more year. I got one more year.
It's not that
You
simple.
like cutting edge over creative?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because cutting edge itself is an innovative.
Big word.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad we left you foster in there.
Yeah. Quit while you're ahead.
I haven't heard very much from the city manager, on this whole discussion. I mean,
Now my moment.
This is your moment.
Yeah.
So here's what I think I heard. We foster an environment that stimulates cutting-edge approaches to achieve efficient processes and exceptional results.
Got it.
Got a ring to it.
Does that sound good?
Yeah. Lofty. I like that.
Great. Okay.
It's me inspired to do something.
Don't lose that thought, because tomorrow you get to be inspirational.
I'm gonna put that up on my wall.
Now that we did our organizational values, can we go back and look at
The mission and vision?
no, the organizational values in that compact sentence?
The statement that goes in front.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. That was the preamble, I guess. is what
Correct,
we referred to.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Still clicks, yeah.
Have to have in the day-to-day operation, just say conduct business operations of the city.
I like day-to-day because it further defines, when people come in here like for a permit, that's a day-to-day thing, whereas we're included in here, including the city commission. We
We don't do day-to-day operations.
are including, we conduct business on the day-to-day
We
operations.
don't do day-to-day
We're in
operations.
there.
We conduct business of the city.
But this is the preamble to the organizational, really the employees, including us. So that's sort of the frame of
The
reference.
city commission cannot conduct business of the day-to-day operation.
Right, but I think where you're,
Well,
I think it's, I read it a little bit differently than that. It's like including the city commission and its staff will conduct business in a day-to-day operations of the municipality. Our day-to-day operations are meetings and legislation. Staff could be mowing, building department, whatever the case may be. So whatever our task may be, I consider that the day-to-day. You know, we may be going to a meeting or MPO, that's my day-to-day. You know, COG, whatever the case may be.
Ordinances you adopt,
Right.
site plan
Right.
approvals.
When we have our
you do.
meetings,
I mean,
yeah.
That's.
That's our
you know,
day-to-day, yeah.
You raise a point. I mean, both of you have valid points about, not getting in the weeds, but at the same token, everybody has a role, but it isn't a function of what you do in delivering services.
And what day-to-day adds for me, it's in every little thing we do.
Mhm.
Every little thing. All of us, every little thing we do.
Yes.
So if you approach it with the philosophy that you just outlined it, I get that.
Right.
But I also understand where Debbie's coming from about not getting in the
Right, we
weeds.
can't get
But
But
involved
everybody's
telling the city
day-to-day
manager
feels differently
on
than
that.
where you're at in the organization.
Right, the city manager is in charge of staff. So we don't get involved in what staff does, but they still have a day-to-day, and so do we.
I can't recall necessarily why we landed on day-to-day, other than the fact that it was just meant to be inclusive of everything you do.
Everything.
And so whether you have day-to-day or whether just the business of the city, but that's really your call,
Big stuff or little.
which way you want to go.
Including the city commission and its staff.
That's a problem,
We
because
don't
they're not
have
our
staff.
staff. We have charter
So
officers.
including the city commission and the city's staff will conduct business.
And staff, take out the word in.
No, because commission and staff makes it look together.
And city staff, I think that's.
Well,
Word city.
see, I'm,
City is the overarching.
City, including the city commission and the city staff, saying it 3
We
times.
don't-
Take it out is sort of the offending word.
One of the things that we had talked about on that previous slide was this didn't just apply to our staff, it applied to our consultants, it applied to our vendors, it applied to everybody who does work and business with the city. And they are being left out of this because it's just the city commission and staff.
I read it a little bit differently on where it says the guiding principles and how the city, and I'm just gonna cut this next part up. It says, if you read it 2 different ways, Northport organization values serve as a guiding principles and how the city including this,
Will
how,
conduct.
listen, how the city, including the city commission, will conduct business, blah, blah, blah. You can also read it out as how the city, including its staff, will conduct business day-to-day operations. So I do not see its staff as part of the commission. I see it as an adjective or pronoun for the city up top, including its staff. I think that's how it was written.
I will tell you that in the conversation, it was not intended just to be your charter officers being your city, those that you're responsible for directly. It was intended to be organizational wide, the entire organization.
The way I
And-
read it, it's the city staff. I read it as the city's commission.
I mean, that's the order it should be in then. How the city staff and the city commission. So
You could put including staff and the city commission. You can reverse it, and then it's a little bit more clearer.
Well, you could say city commission, comma, employees.
How about,
I don't think we need any of that.
I was just gonna say, how about Northport's organizational values serve as a guiding principle on how the city will conduct business in the day-to-day operations of the city. We are part of the city.
We are.
And
And
to
our
bring this-
subcontractors are part
Charter
of
officer
the
example.
day-to-day. Yeah.
Taking out,
Take it out.
including the city commission and its staff needs to come out of there because we are part of the city.
How the city
Of the
Will
city.
conduct business.
Our citizens are part of the city.
Operations of the municipality, you still want to leave day to day in there.
Well, anybody who comes in here, we're conducting business with them. It doesn't,
Right. We'll conduct
contractors
business
or
in the
residents or
day-to-day
anybody,
operations of the
yeah.
municipality.
It gets past the question of vendors and otherwise, it's just the city as a whole,
Oh,
in a
right.
broad base. I think
Mhm.
that makes sense.
And
Did you leave day-to-day operations or not? I lost track, I was trying to capture what you
Will
said.
conduct business in the day-to-day operations, period, because
Yeah.
to the city attorney's point, you're already saying this is how it's gonna be done for the city, and the city is the municipality.
Okay.
Northport's,
Day-to-day operations.
In its day-to-day operation.
You okay with that, Phil? Okay, Phil's good with that, sir.
This is really going to my head, Pete.
how the city will conduct
looking for
business
something,
in the
Phil.
day-to-day.
Watch out.
operation.
Yeah. I like the day-to-day because it adds, because some people just think, okay, it's only 2 times a month that we have meetings, and no, we're conducting business
Day-to-day.
all the time. Yeah.
You don't have to sell them on it. Phil already approved the day-to-day.
For the people out there in visual land or whatever, video land.
5 o'clock yet?
We're close, so I just want to get, so I've got, let me, stay right here. So
Somewhere.
Yes, it is.
Northport's organizational values serve as guiding principles in how the city will conduct business in the day-to-day operations. Is that how it's just landed?
Yes. Or in its,
In its, I was going to say, I don't think the way it was worded made sense, yeah.
its day-to-day operation. period.
Yeah.
Well done, team. I think we've really polished these up.
Now, you know why we spent today, not tomorrow, because and get a flavor of this. I thought that this would take us a little bit of time, so.
As long as last year.
No.
Okay,
Oh, we
so-
got Phil this year.
You're the best. You are the, you know.
You may be creating a monster over here, yeah.
Go earlier,
Beginning.
yeah, careful.
It's the beginning of a romance.
What
I just want to be able to wear the helmet. That's what this is all about.
I remember that one T-shirt that had the arrow that said "I'm with," but I won't say it.
I'm with Phil.
What I will do, I will go back and revise these statements based on what we heard today. So that you'll see these again tomorrow morning, so that you can just, sleep on it, react to it. We can make an adjustment as there. That way you can see all the language to make sure it makes sense from that point. So good work on that as well. So just to set the tone for tomorrow, because we are getting close to 5, I think. We're pretty close, 4:35 or so. We're going to talk a little bit about some additional feedback that I heard from you that we haven't captured today that would be much more driven to pillars and priorities and things of that nature. Then what we're going to do is literally walk through pillar by pillar, the statement, the pillar name, the statement, and the priorities that you established as a commission last year. And there's like 65 of those, and we'll talk a little bit about. There's a lot of priorities that you put together. Now, we're not going to elaborate on it, but the bottom line is this is where you land. This is the direction you gave staff. And then we also, staff then developed last year, including some supplemental work after the retreat with ICMA to develop a variety of key indicators. So tomorrow we're going to give you a presentation of the pillar by pillar priorities and key indicators, and you'll get updates. So we've got that material there. And so Eve, your person that's in charge of that, coupled with the other staff, will kind of be able to help fill in the gaps there. But you're also going to see, remember what I said last year, is that we put a lot on the table, and there's a recognition that even some of the key indicators are hard to get your arms around. So recognizing your role is going to be establishing the pillars and making sure you're comfortable with the statements of the pillars, and then ultimately the priorities within the pillars. Staff's going to say, here's what we've developed, but that's a work in progress. Some of that stuff makes sense. Some of it, the more they worked around it, and you don't want to have your staff just pulling numbers together for the sense of pulling numbers. You've all said you want measurements, but they've got to be smart, and they've got to be something that's not killing your staff to pull it together. So you're going to have a little bit of that dialogue. But the role is you'll be setting pillars and priorities. Staff will be updating you in terms of measurements. Make sure they make sense. Make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay, great. I got you out a little earlier. You're welcome to have a marshmallow on your way out. Other than that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor and to Jerome.
Close the meeting.
Okay. Public
I
comment?
was just going to ask you, City Clerk, I didn't even need the memory jug. Do we have any online public comments, City Clerk? And I do not see any in-house. So it is 4:38, and this Northport City Commission workshop is adjourned. All right.
Retreat.
Retreat.
Good job.